this. I don't know. Do I sound like I'm under a blanket? A little bit to me, I sound like I'm...
This is the Blanket Crew.
Hello, hello. Oh, now I sound like...
Test, test, test. I don't hear anything. Test, 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 test.
Test, 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 test.
same space, because I think that's kind of weird when one person's lower. Test 1 2 3.
Hello,
Test 1 2 3.
hello. Test 1 2 3.
Test 1 2 3.
Test 1 2 3.
So we not what you hear. The digital line. Okay.
Joshua has a beard.
Test 1 2 3. There you go. All right. Calm down, Josh. Because if you panic, then you know what happens when Jewish men panic. We don't. No one knows. No one knows. That's what's so sad. It's like I can't even gossip about it because I don't know what that means. And you can't tell a man when he really hits somebody to hit softly. I'm gonna knock you out. Huh? Yeah, that's inappropriate all out the gate. You don't call a veteran that kind of stuff. You get knocked out.
What did he call him?
Oh yeah. So yeah, my thing is you know, hey man, you too small to be talking like that, man. You better text your words. I'm live? Josh, am I live?
I had all the.
He did tell you. I don't think you heard him.
You were muted for the first part. No, you should.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for showing up. I have somebody called Josh who just doesn't know how that gets down. He just I said no, Josh. If I didn't see it, no one saw it. Those of you at home, this is horrible. We over talking. No, Josh. No. If I didn't recognize it, he over there having. You see him have side conversation. I'm going live. He gonna just let me bury myself? Okay. I'm glad I didn't say what I have to say about Tone Vic out loud, you know, because usually I just let him have it. But anyway, hey, welcome to another class. A lot to cover today. A lot to cover until the end of the year. I'm currently in discussions and hope, cross your fingers, we may actually be having 2 Hope classes next year, where the version of Hope that Court teaches, which is the priming for this version of the course. But even that course is more robust than it was in the previous years. And Court has a lot on his plate because there's a lot of new material that he's prepping for the new year. But I'm currently in negotiations with the college about hosting 2 separate classes, and that we can actually drive a lot of the behavioral science and the foundational work. So by the time you get to my class, it doesn't feel like I'm speaking a Martian language. So I'm excited about that. But right now, and when y'all see Stephanie, I'll give her a big ass hug because Stephanie's really doing a lot of work, which is really interesting because sometimes we celebrate individuals for their heroic efforts in our community and what they do in our community. And sometimes we don't really see how, like you think about the civil rights movement, there was a lot of powerful women that made a lot of things happen that will never be written about. And Stephanie, I'm gonna make sure y'all know as this program has the impact that we've seen it have, and as it scales, that like I told you guys, when I don't think I've ever expressed this to you guys, but back in the days, I used to tell my business partner that I want a statue of a black woman in front of when we get our storefront. And he said, "Why a statue of a black woman?" Because black women have been at the forefront of a lot of our growth, right? They've been like this social media communication system that made sure that FIT Media received this its support by outside organizations. They get corporate jobs. They make sure we get contracts. They make sure we get paid well. They even give me insights on, hey, here's the numbers. So in case they try to hit you these numbers, just know this is what you have access to. And the same thing why we're here at Alameda College is because women jumped into the conversation and said, hey, we want this program here. So I just want to celebrate Stephanie. I know she's not here, but I just wanted to know. And then when you guys do see her, just say thank you. Just say thank you because she puts in work for us. She may not be in the class teaching, but she definitely behind the scenes fighting. And I want to recognize her at the highest level. 2, Tennille, another powerful sister in the team. We got some beautiful people on our team. But it's like Trump, beautiful people, just beautiful people. But we do have beautiful people on our team. Tennille is going to send out a survey to everybody. Please fill out the survey. One thing about this program we're creating, historically programs, educational programs we used to is that they come to us with this recipe or this completed product that they're trying to pass over to us. And I think that method is a failed method, or it's a weak method as far as education. I think education, based upon the kind of company I run, it should be based upon serving the people, not pushing something onto the people. So serving the people means we have to hear back from you and then constantly make adjustments to align to your needs, not walk into a room as if we have some superpower secret sauce that we're going to just enlighten you to, and then all of a sudden the world's going to change. It's really about, life is really, really complex, and there's multiple things happening, complexities happening around us. And even in the Black community, we have levels of diversity that, we use this language diversity, which is it's a horrible use of it, but diversity applies to not only different races, but diversity within the race, and even diversity within the generations. So there's generational differences. And so when you try to present systems to uplift or to impact or to grow, you just can't sit in a private room, me and Court and Mashama, and process solutions. We have to start by putting in a lot of work around behavioral science, designing tools, and then bringing the tools to you to get feedback. And some tools may be a perfect design, but it's just not for you. And if we get enough consensus that it's not working, we dump that tool and find a better tool until we start to see progress. So we don't measure this program by the applause we get on our back or people who clap and say, oh, we love what you're doing. We measure this program by the kind of impact we have upon you. And if we're not impacting you, the program sucks. And so I don't care about titles, names, celebration, and status. I care about transforming lives. And so Tennille's going to send out this document to receive feedback. Load up as much feedback. There's no such thing as negative feedback. Don't be afraid to share something you would deem as negative. We big kids behind this counter, and we can handle. We read into the negative and try to see what you're really saying. We don't get caught up in like, oh, what you mean? You don't like my baseball cap, right? We'll say, hey, why is that an issue? What's driving that? Are we dealing with a group of students who've received trauma from a group of people who beat them up who had baseball caps on, right? That's a reality, because from certain communities, people have different traumatic experiences that make learning certain information from certain people extremely uncomfortable. So we'll make those adjustments because it's not about us flexing our muscles and doing what we want to do up here. It's about building stepping stones for you guys to get to a certain point where you can actually be our peers, not for us to focus on always being your leader. And this entrepreneur thing and this leadership thing, you never arrive. So it's not like we sit at the top of anything. We're still climbing, and you will be climbing until you close your eyes for the last time. This is how the game works. And I'll get into that in a minute because I got a cool little story I want to share with you that I had with a family member. So with that being said, before we get into that, is there anything that sparked any thoughts around the podcast that we put out from last week? Anybody want to discuss anything, ask any questions? Just want to check in real quick. Okay, Shakina said her finger was already up before he was finished the sentence. I said, is anybody? She's like, just in case he's talking about this podcast. So go ahead, Shakina.
That shit was fire. Both of them. I have lots and lots and lots.
yeah, I can see, which is good. It's good. It's great.
But on the first podcast, the Escalation podcast, I thought that was hella dope because I don't think that a lot of times, like before this podcast, the words that I had to describe the situation were hooked from Emotional Agility, right? So it's like have a very small library of words that I can use to describe emotions. And as we know, the more words that you have, the better you can explain yourself and see things. And so this was valuable for me because it gave me a different way of viewing things, and it made me and I think it was a combination of listening to this one first and then the podcast about curiosity directly after. And I'm like, yo, this shit is crazy. Which prompted me to have a 2-hour conversation with my daughter that got on her goddamn nerves. I don't care. It was very wonderful. But the first podcast, what I thought was super dope about it was that, one, they didn't just identify like something that we struggle with, but like I loved that they gave you like an outline exit strategy, because I don't think that how I would refer to it is I'm just hooked, and once I get hooked I can't unhook. Like it's really hard for me to separate that. And I really liked how they took the realistic approach of like, look, when you're realize that you're in an escalation pattern, and then have benchmarks to say, okay, if it hits this, we got to pull the plug. That was like, especially having a business and employees and so many branches moving in my business. And there's a lot of times where I will make the assumption of maybe I just got to sit in this a little bit longer.
Loss aversion.
And I'm just like, no, like this is a bad fucking idea. I knew this was a bad idea like weeks ago, and I'm holding on to it because of like my fear of being wrong or failure. And so that was just like so goosebump, crazy, powerful for me. And I really loved the exit strategy, which I would love if we could expand upon that from a business perspective, because the woman that was giving the example of the exit strategy did have a job. And so I'm curious if there is any different strategies applied from looking at it from a 9-to-5 perspective as to looking at it from somebody that has a business, because I do think that there's more things that can make it more complex than just a simple.
For you, what do you mean?
So
Josh, give us a drink.
in her example,
it's okay.
in her example, she was talking about how she had launched this project as part of like, I think it was like Google X or something like that, a branch within Google, right? And she was like, a lot of times it's really hard for people to de-escalate because they attach themselves and their personal value to these projects.
Yes.
So what I do when I have a project is I have these benchmarks on, if it hits this, then I have to pull the plug.
Yes.
And then I was like, okay, that's an interesting approach. And
Yes.
then it made me think about, but then she brought up, she was like, yeah, and because I was able to pull the plug on a bad idea, I got a raise for that. And he was like,
Yeah.
wait, you got a raise for that? And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, I don't feel like there's the same level of understanding or safety nets. So I'm curious if there's a different psychological approach, because usually if you pull the plug on a bad idea, you just take an L and then you just try to figure out how to not make the same mistake again. You're not really getting celebrated or rewarded for it. You just save some skin in the game and stop the bleeding. So I'm just curious, is there something else that I'm missing from it being applied from a job perspective to a business owner perspective?
It's interesting because I don't think I look at it as a reward trade-off, right?
I mean, because you're getting.
Well, because at the end of the day, you're not playing in business. There is no guarantees, right? We discussed that last week, that when you're in business, it's not like if you do A, you get to B. You do B, you get to C. You can do A perfectly and still be stuck at A. And so I think in your desire to survive and protect your resources, that is the reward, right? So, because I think there's something you said that makes you unique. You said when you're able to recognize your patterns. If the ego's strong enough, you can't see your patterns. It just feels like, I just know this is right. I just believe in it. And like they said in that podcast, we watch TV shows that always tell us when everybody says it's a bad idea, the main subject or the main actor continues down this journey of path of success to eventually win, and everybody goes, oh my God, you were so innovative. Not realizing that's very uncommon, right? So they're selling you this bad idea. That's why I said, if you knew how many bad ideas TV and social media sells you, like it and it's almost criminal. But we're at the early stages of social media and we're also still in the early stages of mass communication that we haven't really sat down and looked at the true effects of this. But as an entrepreneur, that's like you're saying, every time you make a decision that you progress from, or you do well from, or you survive, you need a reward on the back end. And I don't think that's how it works. So I think that she received the reward, and that's why the question was like, oh, you received the reward, when it should imply that as entrepreneurs shouldn't be reward based. It should be driven by and I think the reward base, when we discussed the reward base, was to help employees become comfortable with failure. Mm-hmm. Why is that a challenge? When you take on a job sells you a false sense of certainty. So failure, going to have a job where it's based upon certainty, practicing failure is almost like on the opposite side of thinking. It's just a whole different world. But as an entrepreneur, you should be practicing uncertainty, randomness, probability. So failure, like the people who struggle the most with failure, even though everybody does, but the people who struggle the most is new entrepreneurs. As you become more and more seasoned, you kind of accept that's part of the game, right? It's like there's just no way in the world. So I think Google does that to help employees process this whole idea. Because what happens here's a challenge. When you try to do something like true innovation inside of a company, bureaucracy becomes the enemy of innovation. So you have to build things into the system to prevent the bureaucracy from smothering the creativity. And before you know, you have a system that's doing these small nudges and celebrating it as being innovation when they're not doing any innovation at all. So innovation is definitely something that you have to design for. It is not something that, if you have a company, you say, I want a company full of innovators, you can't run business as usual. You have to design an environment to support innovative thinking employees. And so then you have to give them unique rewards and unique systems and unique celebrations. You have to change the status system, the incentive systems. You have to change all those different things to create a team of people. You would even have to gamify it, right? But all of that that's why I think when she gave the example, but I think the core of the message of everything, or how she approached it, how she thought about it, when she put a trigger, she did a cost-benefit analysis and said the cost of this is too far out. By the time we even have to get there, it's just too many variations of the company can change to the point that this is a bad idea. Yeah. But all that looking at numbers to do a cost-benefit analysis, where most of us, you could tell when your ego's involved, because your ego don't want to see the numbers. Your ego say something like, well, why does numbers matter? This is what I feel. Right, and so it's like we turn our beliefs into we turn our decision making into religious beliefs. Religion has its place in this world, as I stated a couple of classes back. That is very, very valuable. But you cannot move in business using narratives, morality, and mythical beliefs. You just can't. Even morality, like you just saying, that's right, that's good, that's bad, that's not business. Not at all. Not at all. So it's a very complex, so I think that there's some complex levers that are being pulled in knowledge and understanding, which I hope for you guys to get. Plus this first chapter that we covered in the book Scaling, it's the same thing. The exact same thing. He just talked about it from just kind of circling around the same lesson. And what I love about it is that you're taking the class, but then the lesson resonated better with you through the podcast, which that's what I want podcasts to do. So I think it served well. And just to, like I said, you called me yesterday, super excited, and the excitement hasn't even slightly deteriorated, which is excellent. And if at all, that means it was successful. So
I have one more thing.
Sure.
So it was funny. I was so geeked up about the podcast because I was listening to them at work because I was like, oh, I gotta listen to these before class. So I had sent the podcast to one of my clients, and we were talking about the podcast.
That's perfect. I love it.
Which a lot of Pinpoint members hear about this class. Eventually, they all gonna be up in but it was really
and vice versa.
Because we were talking about the part when she was saying, okay, but what happens when, you know, you're that person where you stuck it in and you do survive? And I challenged her and I was just like, yeah, but how many bad businesses do you know that survived? That doesn't mean that what they did was a good idea. They could be in a hype cycle right now and there's not enough competition in the market. Which I think that's a conversation I should have in an entrepreneur class, not in a non-entrepreneur setting.
Yeah.
Because then she was just like, bitch. Like she was just, pretty much, she was just like, I don't agree with you. And I'm just like, I mean, cool. Like I tried to like segue, but then I was just like, but I mean, if we really get down to the meat and potatoes of it, like a lot of the businesses that we patronize is because we don't have better options, or just because most of the time it's just because we just don't have better options, or we feel bad and so we'll purchase something to support somebody. But if there was a better service, we're going to jump ship and go to the better service because humans want the best. And so I'm curious to figure out, like, I want to keep sharing the knowledge that I learned in this class because it's so powerful for me and like in my business and how I move. And like I find like when I share certain things, it can be overwhelming for other people. And I'm wondering, is there like a middle ground?
Yeah, there's a middle ground. So there should be. So first of all, the answer to, there is calculations for when to stick with a certain idea, and there is a cost analysis, and there is you can look at time, cost analysis. There's a couple of different equations you can use to say, I probably should stick with this a little bit longer. So there's a way of looking at it through. If you look at it through numbers, it becomes a lot clearer. Now, if you go into narratives, you're never going to become clear, right? You're a narrative thinker. But as far as sharing a lot of stuff you're learning in part 2 of this class, this is advanced thinking now. Like, we're moving into advanced decision making, advanced thinking. This kind of conversation that you have in this class will not work on social media. Matter of fact, you're going to find that the average person you're going to learn, that's why you think high-level entrepreneurs talk to high-level entrepreneurs, because they can't share certain ideas. Now, what you can do is kind of take an idea like this, which is based upon the principles of pivoting, and try to simplify your knowledge of pivoting to the most simplest language you can. And then somebody's trying to make a decision in life where they need to think about, should I pivot or should I not? You can give them some simple things to think about, but don't take them into the formula, right? Like a chef can share their meals. You just don't even want to watch them cook it, right? It just almost has no value to you. But if they say, hey, I just made this fancy dish, and they tell you what it is inside of it, you can even fool yourself and think you can taste all the herbs they just mentioned to you, because in the end, that's transferable. But if you actually watch the chef for the first time and you're not a chef, it looks like magic is happening. You like they 3-card Molly with food. It's just, what the hell just happened, right? And so, unfortunately, as you advance in this class, you learn, like, think about how long you know me and how much I don't talk about. Because you would want to, it seems like you would think that once you understand this stuff to a certain level, people would celebrate you when you show up. But you got to forget that it ain't about truth and knowledge. It's about egos and status and gamifying. And if what you're saying is threatening my game, my status, my ego, I'm going to argue with you. I don't give a shit if you are the person I should be coming to. It blows. I used to blow my mind. I'm like, why are these people arguing with me and they need the information I'm going to share with them? But after a while, you realize because they're playing a different game. So really, it's really meant for you to build. Now, as you build more and more and more, people will be willing to sit at your feet and hear more and more and more and more. And I'm sure you're starting to see that from when you were training people outdoors, rain, sleet, or snow, to now you have a nice space. It's changing the listeners to your conversation. So, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is not really for mass. If you could, like, I think the person who does it best that I know of course I have to practice it all the time, is Pastor Chris. Because Pastor Chris boils a lot of this stuff down to really simple language. He doesn't give his church every detail, but he gives them a lot of the core points and messages, and he puts together these digestible recipes that the public can handle. So yeah. All right, we good? Okay, I want to share this one story real quick before I jump into the lesson because we got a lot to cover. So today I was watching sports commentators on, they were discussing something. I can't remember what it was, but because there's always something happening in sports. So my son walks up to me and says, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "What?" He says, "Why do you watch this stuff? All this commentating on sports?" I said, that's a good ass question. I'm going to answer it for you, but it's going to be way deeper than you expected. And as I started to answer the question, I'm going to get to a certain point I thought I wanted to share with you guys. So I said, the reason I watch sports is simple as this. Life is a game. Let me say this again. Don't ever forget I said this to you. This is the most important thing I'm going to ever say to you. Life is a game. Your subconscious plays a game, but your conscious mind doesn't accept it, and it creates narratives to justify your role in the game. At all times, human beings are playing the status game. At all times. If you say, I'm not playing a game, you're playing a game. Your game is that different group. I went on to explain to him that when you watch sports, it's human beings being rewarded for the game they unconsciously play all the time, which is sport games. But in their mind, they're always playing a game. Everybody in this room plays a game. This is why you want to learn game theory. I said, and this is what's important about understanding about a game, is that when you watch sports, you watch how human beings play this game that is duplicated all through society at every different levels, and you watch these different complex group psychology or group dynamics play out that are so interesting. So in addition to that, it allows me to also take these complex stories and figure ways to simplify these complexities to share in my class. Third, it also shows me how human beings cover up the game with their narratives they tell themselves. So you're playing this game, but what you tell yourself is something different. It's hard for you to say that at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is get status. For example, money will never make you happy, but the status that money gives you makes you happy. Because the reason money doesn't make you happy, because almost every black person in this room is richer than anybody, most people were 50 years ago. But what happens is when white people became richer than you, your status dropped. So now you want more money to raise your status, right? So once you understand the game you play, if you join any group, then I went on to say to him, I said, I went on to him to say this, that son, when I went from playing, when I was doing Chicago Steppin', the dance thing, that was a game. Now you might look at it as dancing, but that was a game I was playing. And then what happened was, I was playing that game to the point I started hurting the game I was in, which was 510 Media, which is another game I'm playing. So I had to stop stepping because the game of stepping was taken away from the game of entrepreneurship. I said, this is why I tell you all the time, choose your friends wisely. Because every time you choose friends, you're choosing a group that's playing a particular game. And if that game is contrasted to the game you want, unfortunately, their game will put you in places you don't want to be in. So you have to make sure that the friends you pick are in alignment with the game you're playing. Otherwise, your friends, even though y'all love each other, y'all got your smile, you think it's fun, you got jokes you can share, you have all these beautiful stories you can tell about these human experiences. You don't realize that other human beings, when they come into your circle, are creating a game. And if you choose too many of the wrong people, you will fuck up one day and separate from your own dreams. I said, and do not pay, this is where it gets interesting. Don't think your narratives that you use to process the world around you is actually telling you anything about the world around you. It's only helping you justify the world, but it doesn't really describe the world. I said, that's why when you talk to me, son, and you tell me certain stuff, I don't listen to the words you tell me. I'm playing to the game, I'm paying attention to the game you're playing, right? So, if you guys don't mind, just can we have a second? So then I said to him, and here's what's so funny. So whatever level you at right now in your life, you have a group of narratives that keeps you at that level of the game. Let me say it again. Whatever level you are in your life, you have a group of narratives that keep you at that level of the game. Once you decide you want to go up another level, Often you can't go to the next level. You know why? Because you won't let go of the game that you're playing right now. You won't let go of the narratives and the game you're playing right now. Because when you go to another level, you have to go to a new game. And what locks you into the game you play right now is a group of narratives. So you can be like, I'm this person, I'm known for this, is who I came from. These are narratives you're telling yourself to play the game you're in right now. Remember, the subconscious and conscious have two different worlds. The subconscious is going to be playing the game. The conscious is going to be creating narratives. So when you decide you want to go up to another level, you have to let go members and narratives of the game you came from to play the new game you want to play. It says again, when you decide you want to grow, you're going to have to let go of the members and the narrative of the game you was playing for the game you wish to play. Where we often find ourselves failing at is that we try to hold on to the same narrative and the same members as we go to different games. Now, it's like, imagine you having your favorite outfit at the age of 10. And you want to wear that outfit. You love this outfit. There's a whole narrative. You met your first love. You had some of the best time of your life wearing that outfit. It might work at the age of 11. And at 12, it starts to choke you up a little bit. At 15, because you went through a growth spurt at 16, it's starting to become kind of dangerous to wear that outfit. At the end of the day, the outfit, your old game cannot grow with you. At some point, it will choke you back to the first level you came from, which then seems religious and spiritual. It feels like the world is working against me and everything's going wrong. I can't understand. I feel like there's some force holding me back. It must be white supremacy. Something's holding me back. The thing that's holding you back is you stuck in your old game. And one of the things I told him, I said, look, the reason I always attack right versus wrong and fairness, because right versus wrong and fairness allows you to judge inappropriately. What do I mean by this? Let's say Shabisha does something I don't understand, and I'd be like, that shit's stupid. And Shakina does something I don't understand, and I was like, that was wrong, right? What I'm actually doing is I'm cutting myself off from understanding what's around me and the next level of the lesson. What I mean by this is that if I don't understand her why, when I understand her why, I will unlock a new code of life. When I understand your why, I unlock a new code of life. So when I move to the next level of game, remember, when you go to the next level of the game, you are a beginner of the game. You know nothing about this game. It's new terrain. Everything's new. New people for you to meet, new things, new habits to form, everything, right? But because you judge so many different things, you cut off so much knowledge by judging people that you're more naked when you get to the next level, often failing because you have not even enough knowledge to stay there. The reason you want to be curious and hold and turn down that fairness and right versus wrong, good versus bad, because it allows you to see a broader perspective, learn different lessons that even when you get to level 2, you have enough knowledge to be able to survive until you gain more knowledge and stabilize your footing. But too many of us never grow because between our judgmental behavior and our love for our old narratives and our love for the old members in the game, no matter how much we try to grow, you will always end up back at square one again and again and again and again and again. Imagine playing a video game and you learn how to get past level 1. You're not getting past 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with that same game. So even when you say, the rich people and the racist white people, and this, you may become them because that's level 10. You can't even translate it. But when you judge them and you cut it off, you don't see what is actually human and what is actually evil. And you'll find out more of it's human than evil. Imagine, I remember Jamie Foxx said when he first got his first big paycheck, he had members calling him, I need 2,000, 10,000, 5,000, 20,000. And they had all these horrible stories. He said he started giving everybody some money because he had the story, he had the narrative of, when I get rich, I'm going to do this, right? And he had the mindset and he had the members and the narrative of level 1. He does a leapfrog to level 5 or whatever, right? He's at level 5 now. And he responds to his surroundings at level 1, which is, let me give you some money, let me help you out, let me look out for you. He said he didn't realize how fast money accumulated and how fast he was going to go broke by helping all these people out because he was still holding on to the principles and values of level 1. Now, if he finally wakes up and says, I'm at level 5 and I have these rules now, he may have one nephew, because things going to slip between the cracks, who really says, hey, uncle, I need a car because I'm really busting my ass going back and forth. And he'd be like, yo, I ain't going to give you no car because now you're level 5. What's going to happen is that family member is going to receive that rejection, go talk to all the people in level 1, and they're all going to spread the idea that Jamie Foxx is rich and he's part of Illuminati, or he don't give a shit about black people, and y'all heard those stories. Now, if he starts to find sympathy in that chatter, he will develop practices to put him back to level 1. Every level you decide you want to get to, there's different rules to the game. There's different narratives. There's different beliefs, and there's different members. And so what kills me about, and once you guys learn game theory, this is which is some coldest shit in the world. Once you're able to see the games that are always being played around all the time, no longer we start saying that's stupid, things will start making sense to you that you never imagined before. Like, that shit makes sense now. But many of us never get past a certain level because that same thing that makes us judgmental is the same things that locks us into the level that we're stuck at. I.e., biblical, do not judge. Is that cold? Yeah, like, fuck that. I'm a judge. If I'm in an alleyway and I see this dude, I'm a judge. No, you just shrunk it down to level 1 thinking. As you get higher, if you want to climb and ascend in this life, you have to spend time, even the compassion and being humble and meek and observing things around you. They all play into ultimately your ascension. Like those things, the things that Bible's taught, they weren't telling you to be humble so somebody can trample on top of you. They were giving you keys to figuring out how to get to the next level. And so in curiosity, empathy, turning down your judgment and asking why, you'd be surprised how fast you expand your knowledge. Cold-blooded game, huh? Gamify it. Go ahead. Just your turn, make sure it's green.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm backtracking just a tiny bit, but what you just said, we didn't really touch bases, but like, can we go over a little bit of the Curiosity podcast? Because I think that there was a lot of gems in that.
Go ahead. What do you want to go over specifically?
I have notes. I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me is when they were going over why people, when they're problem solving, like they always want a problem they can solve, as opposed, and so like trying to transition your thought process from thinking of things as mysteries as opposed to problems, because people always want to have the answers. And I thought that was hella dope, because I'm like, in a society where it's mainly ran by our egos, I can understand why that's the leading thought of like, I got the answer to this, or I know this, or people will say that shit all the time, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I just thought that was really interesting. And like, I just have like big old like, why, right? But that was like a really, I think, thoughtful thing that I wanted to bring to class, because I think that it is very natural for us to want to just focus on problem solving and coming up with a quick solution, as opposed to like being comfortable and okay with like approaching a problem and accepting that we might not ever know the answer, and that's why we should stay curious, because it's constantly evolving and changing.
Well, that's good. Now we get back to probability. We talked about it a couple of classes ago. This is why probability is important. One of the first signs you know that somebody's telling you bullshit as far as this business course is if you do this, you'll be successful. Everything's based on probability. All you're trying to do is increase your probability. There is no guarantees in this stuff. And once you learn learning that you live in a world where it's full of randomness, uncertainty, and probability, because this is what's missing from all these. The gimmick of these business courses is that they try to sell you, because they try to talk to people who come in from a world of expecting that they have control, right? So they talk control-based language. You know, if you do this is what successful people do to achieve success. That doesn't mean anything. I just lied to you. That's like me telling you, let me change the words. If you go to Las Vegas at 4:00 and you take your rent money and you play on slot machine 7 and you pull it 7 times this way, I can guarantee you're gonna be successful. If you go to Las Vegas and you find the black guy on a blackjack table, I can guarantee you're gonna be successful. You would look at me like, get this quack out of here, but you let business programs tell you this all the time. All you're trying to do is improve probability. And if you look at the stock market, right? People look at the stock market as if it's like a credit card. If I put this money in, I'm gonna get this money back. Right? Like, if you know, with a credit card, you spend this much money, you're gonna get this interest rate. So, that's probably the only thing that feel like guaranteed. But okay, in the stock market, everybody understands the professionals understand they play in probability game. They're gambling at a higher level. But they understand how to also gamble to not hit zero. If you gamble to the point of zero, you're out the game. They understand that as well, right? What I'm suggesting to you is this, is that if you get into the probability thing, then you know, Josh, you okay? You what happened? Okay, I just heard a lot of noise. I didn't know if you was okay. Okay, good. Once you understand, once you fully embrace that, then you realize also too that you never have all the knowledge. That's a status comment. That has nothing to do with truth. Matter of fact, the more knowledge you gain, the more you realize you just can, it's just nowhere, it's not obtainable. It's just not even close. So you don't even talk like that. Also too, a lot of times, oppressed people and people of poverty are told that the reason you suffer is because you don't have enough knowledge, which is not true. It's used as a status tool. Now, does knowledge become powerful tools that can improve your probability? Yes. But also there's a guy in Mississippi who's been a sharecropper who probably has more knowledge than everybody in this room. So it's one of those things where I think we play these silly games because we're trying to play the ego and status games. I mean, I got more knowledge, I got a PhD, so I'm superior to you. When actually, I'm using these status marks to claim value, but the PhD student may be very intelligent in this one thin lane. Pull them outside that lane, and they need to go back to grade school. Literally, that's how much of it. And trust me, we know this from working with and being challenged and being in conversations with PhD individuals. But this whole idea of superior knowledge, so life is not meant to, also too, solving problems. I'm gonna give you guys a podcast because starting next week, I'm gonna give you guys a podcast where you have to give me your notes, right? I'm gonna give you my email. We'll send out my email, and I want you to just upload your notes or your questions or comments to the email, because I want you guys to dive deeper into these podcasts as opposed to just let them run in the background like it's Al Green. But solving problems is counterintuitive. It's not intuitive. If it was, it wouldn't be a problem. So the ways you solve problems, to go into solving problems with a high level of confidence, you can have faith in yourself. You can have hope in yourself. But having high levels of confidence is ignorance. It's a mystery.
You want to roll? I have a hypothesis that I would love for you to poke at, but we can go into this. It's really muddy too. Mm-hmm. I love it, but I can tell you after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tennille, the sister was sitting behind you. Make sure she didn't go outside and lock herself out or anything like that. The door's open, because just make sure the door's open. I want to make sure she's not outside talking about, I got my purse in there. It's cold out here. Just making sure she's safe. Y'all, you get locked out, stuff is in. That's the worst feeling in the world. I would be surprised she'd jump on that cliff and be banging on the window. Let me in. We got a lot to cover, so let's jump in, because I got this class is not going to. There's never going to be. There's not going to be any light classes moving forward. Do not become frustrated if everything doesn't resonate right away. if you're just now starting this class or you started in within the last 3 months, shit, if you just started this year for the first time, this class should be stretching the hell out of your brain. Was she locked out? No. Okay, I just want to make sure you wasn't locked out. That's all. But yeah, the thing is that the purpose of this class moving forward is really to stretch your thoughts, change your conversations, and introduce you to new ideas that you can personally explore on your own. This class is for leaders. A leader finds something that sparks curiosity or becomes something they find interesting, and they dive into it, and they become that person. If you still live under that idea that a mentor will hold your hand to get you over the hump, that's not leadership. Leadership is, because even a mentor is doing something wrong. And your job is to stand on everybody's, so in order for you to stand on other people's shoulders, it's critical that you put yourself in position to also drive your own agenda, not always look for somebody to hold your hand. So this class should spark you to think. And even sometimes when you listen to these podcasts, you're like, hey, I want to know more about that book. Order the book. Don't wait for somebody to tell you, or give yourself permission to be your own leader. Otherwise, you can't blame nobody when you fail. All right, let's get down. Ready? Okay.
As an economist who studies incentives.
Before we get started, real quick. I think.
You did that on purpose.
Huh?
I said you did that on purpose.
No. We're still addressing false positives. These are things in business that will give you this false sense, or thing in building or scaling or anything. These are ideas, and these are systems that are belief systems or methodologies that will give you this sense that you're making progress when it's a false positive. And why your brain and why other things around you can send a message that whatever you're doing can work, to only discover on the back end it was a bad idea, right? So let's take off from there, but we want to continue, because this is a continuation from, we're still in false positives, so it's still continuing from last week's class. So go ahead.
As an economist who studies incentives, I was interested in the question of what motivates people like Wansink to engage in such behavior, which was at best bad faith science and at worst outright deceit. What could compel someone to risk their reputation and professional future in this way?
So real quick, this thing about incentives, so you're talking about game theory. If you understand that human beings will play a game until from the day you start playing the game as early as 1, and you play it till you die. Nobody escapes game. Nobody escapes game theory. One of the most powerful tools in game theory is incentives. This shit's about to get real deep. If you took game theory and incentives and didn't have ethics, you can do a lot of damage to this world. You can do a lot of good with it. You can do a lot of destruction with it. And you're about to learn some stuff that's so cold-blooded that you guys, from us growing up in black community and watching family members, you're gonna see some family, you're gonna see Uncle John, Pimpin' Mama Lisa, you're gonna see Big Mama, you're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff in here. You're gonna be like, holy Jesus, this is cold-blooded. So let's move on.
The answer, the way the incentives are structured.
Okay, another thing too. If you understand incentives, it's going to change the meaning of racism. Because you have that, okay. If you thought that everybody who fought in the Nazi war hated Jews, you don't understand human beings. You know how hard it is for a large group of people to hate a group of people? How difficult that is? It's close to impossible, right? But if you understand the incentives, you can find yourself doing something that is racist, perverse, sick, and destructive. And the person who's victimized by it can say it was racist. Mm-hmm. But the person who committed the crime was not motivated by racism. He was motivated by incentive. You say, well, why is that important? Because everybody in this room can do shit you can't even imagine behind the wrong incentives. And once you understand that, you realize that using the word racism often shrinks your knowledge or understanding of how shit works around you. So now we're about to get into something really, really deep, and it's going to start to change. And this is a tool that incentives is a good thing and a bad thing based upon application. The same incentives that you can use to grow a company and run a perfectly structured company is the same incentives that can get a group of people to create genocide amongst another group of people. Roll.
In academia, you only climb the ranks, get tapped to run a lab, and secure large grants, which usually increase your salary and potentially your speaking fee, if you publish your research in marquee journals.
So real quick, the whole first paragraph, in academia, she said, in academia, you only climb the ranks. In academia, you get status. If you publish, you can skip all the other, because that's all status. You get the climb the ranks status, get tapped to run a lab status, secures large grants status, which usually increases your salary status, and potentially your speaking fee status, if you publish your research in marquee journal. So real simple. If in academia you improve your status if you publish your research in marquee journal. All those tools you just saw out there are tools to stimulate status. That's a game. That's game theory there. Keep going.
And what gets you into these top journals? Fresh, exciting findings, and all the better if they're media friendly. So when Wansink took shortcuts and even engaged in outright deception, he was in effect responding to the incentives built into academia. Of course, most top-tier scientists who reach Wansink's level of success do so through legitimate research, innovation, and elbow grease, but they're motivated by the same rewards. When you think about it this way, it's easy to see how someone could be tempted to try to give themselves a leg up by employing an approach that shows little respect for science and its ethical code.
Let me give you, okay, black people, I'm talk to y'all for a second. That's called academic drug dealing. Why does a drug dealer sell dope? To change his status, right? And he sells it, he takes shortcuts to sell it, to change his status, even at the expense of destruction of other people. So as you judge Wansink and go, how could he dare publish all those false reports that misled millions of people so he can get paid more money? Then when you go home on Facebook, watch how many people are doing it every day. I want you to see how cold this shit is. When you judge people, oh, they're evil, they're racist, they're sexist, they're homophobic, they're whatever the fuck you want to call them. They're human. The more you see human behavior, it helps you navigate this ocean. But when you start calling it the inappropriate thing, you give it so much weight you can't even think because it's too much emotions, it's taking up too much energy, it's burning too many calories. Let's keep rolling. The incentive.
The incentives to lie or cheat are even greater in business, especially in our world of inflated IPOs that turn struggling founders into millionaires or even billionaires overnight.
Now you imagine what .com feel like. Keep going.
A dramatic example is Elizabeth Holmes, one of the most notorious dupers of the 21st century.
Did y'all see this, her story on Netflix? Beautiful story.
Her company...
Huh? Just hang with us. Keep going.
Her company, Theranos, raised over $700 million from investors and was valued at $9 billion, thanks to its breakthrough blood testing technology that was supposedly poised to revolutionize the practice of medicine around the planet. Holmes' story is fascinating for a variety of reasons. First, it highlights a vulnerability at the heart of many high-risk investment ventures. People are betting on the person with the idea as much as on the idea itself.
Okay, go back again. First, it highlights a vulnerability at the heart of many high-risk investment ventures. People are betting on the person with the idea as much as ideas itself. So the investors are getting caught by group thinking, right? They're getting caught by a loss aversion. They're getting caught by the winner's curse, right? We talked about this last week, where in the end, you're making her success your success. Let me give you another layer to that. Her status becomes your status. This is why people follow great leaders who you're like, why do they follow that crazy ass dude? Why are people still riding with Kanye West? His status is their status.
That is like the dopest internal check. Like if you're wondering if you're doing that, because I was like, oh shit, look at, there's the space. Because what does she have to do with anything that you're doing? Nothing. That's the illest like internal check. That's fire.
Because when we engage in status games, you don't have to be around people to be in status games. If you have the people in your head, you will battle with them in your head, because in the end, if you beat them, you won. You don't need to even see their faces. So you could be living in a cabin way up in the hood, in the woods, in the hood. Yeah, you can tell I'm from East Oakland. But in the woods, right? And in your brain, you can be like, I'm not playing a status game. And yet, as you make certain decisions, you're playing it based upon the virtual relationships you have in your head. So because the human being has the ability to build relationships with people virtually without even connecting to them, right? And so if she grows, you grow because you personalize her decisions.
It reminded me of, damn, I'm hella loud.
That's all good.
It reminded me of when it said that whenever a sports team wins the championship, sales of their product goes up 60-something% of the product and the player, which means people just want to rock the jersey based on the status. So people love being a part of winning teams. And that even goes as far as why people are so fanatical about football, baseball, basketball, and sports, is because they can align with the team. And if the team is winning, they can have a PhD. But you see them out on the field going crazy and dressed down in all of the sports teams, because status, like you said, bypasses logic, and it says, I'm a part of this winning team. I didn't even play 1 second on that motherfucking court, but if they win, I win.
I have a question, because I don't want to. Binary thinking would have you go into like, well, I'm just not going to do that, right? So if people attach themselves to people as a way to get status, then I won't do that, which is anti-status, which is still the same thing. You're just wearing a different coat.
Where you going wrong right now?
Yes.
Take right and wrong out of this, because there's moral processing. Pull the moral processor out.
Right. So
And just say, there's a time to use it and there's a time not to.
So my question was going to be, how do we use it rather than getting into a place?
Choose who you attach it to. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
If there's like Pastor Chris, his members have attached their status to him. They have. Choose. That's why you engineering your environment for your growth is so critical. This is getting into the details of the why engineering certain things, right? It's like when I attach myself to certain things, I'm identifying with, are those values I want for myself? Then they become incentivized to help you stay focused. Now, when I spend my money, I keep my incentives over here, which I separate my incentives. I don't, like say if I'm invested in Corey Smith, I'm not gonna overvalue him, because then that means like I'm skewed. I'm gonna become a walking bias. What I do is I might say, I'm attached to the evolution of black folks. If this relationship with him is starting to show me signs that the numbers are saying pull out, I will disconnect from that relationship economically, because in the end, it's gonna compromise my relationship to black folks. And in my narrative, because we all are walking narratives, I come to tell myself that my economic growth gives me power and tools to have impact in my community and shift the impact of like ghettos and poverty and all these other things that's causing destruction to our community, right? As well as allows me to play a role in eventually tapping us to have access to the large market, of the future market, and the current market of Africa, right? These are like a bigger narrative I'm telling myself, right? My blueprint narrative. But I had a narrative to keep me from getting caught up in these little small narratives and becoming blinded. Because if you don't have a bigger narrative that kind of like pulls you back, that's bigger than everything, then your narrative can become my narrative. Right? And this all of a sudden you find yourself like, oh, you know, I go to every Warriors game because I'm a Warrior fan to the heart, deep. You lost, you don't have no narrative. So that narrative becomes dominant. At some point, you have to have your own anchor narrative that says, if all this other shit go a certain kind of way and starts to pull me from this narrative, I'm out. If you don't, you are literally will just float in the wind, and you will probably never make progress because you never stay around long enough to find out what progress feels like. So you have to have a bigger narrative that's greater than that. So in the end, you will attach. This is why it's so important, like to get into like good and bad and avoidance is kind of it's a religious practice. You gotta, and I'm not demoning it because I think religion has excellent, I think that's one of the things that hurt the mass of society is the walk away from religion, because religion does create a unified narrative that allows us to collaborate and create and innovate even better, right? It also helps a lot of people that you forget about. Like it keeps a lot of them mentally stable. So I think religion has a lot of, it's not an anti-religion. I'm saying that you got to know when to have religious thinking and when to separate from religious thinking. They have value, but it's not you can't use one form of thinking across the board because it's not functional across the board, right? And so in the end, you will have these attachments. You will project yourself on certain things, right? But when you see these individuals doing that, don't shake your head at them like, You're going to do it too, and you're doing it too. All right? Go ahead, sis. Give her microphones, because we have people like at home. They be like, "What is she saying? What is she saying?" Right? Especially like Tone Vic.
I guess more of an execution on religious. I'm sorry, I just had a brain fart. But you were just talking about religious thinking. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? Like, do you literally mean religious? Like, are we being literal here? No, right? Religion
has its place. Human beings are such a herd animal. This is not that low level like religion versus people who don't practice any religion. Atheism, right? We're not talking about atheists. We're not talking about good versus bad religion either. What we're saying is that human beings are religious-based. We're a herd-based animal. We're not an I, we're we. Religions have their place. They absolutely have their place. They're tamers. They create balance. They create they bring better collaboration amongst human beings. But when you're scaling, there's different forms of thought, different principles of thought, right? And you have to know when to say, hey, this is when you're looking at life through religion, you're looking through morality. Using morality as your gauge of right, wrong, and how close am I to my God, my belief of God. But when you're looking at human beings, you got to understand human nature. And once you understand human nature and what drives our behavior and what are things that like how our brain, like game theory, like religion doesn't really drive game theory. But if you understand human beings and you watch human behavior, you'll see game theory everywhere you turn. So you got to be able to say, okay, when it comes to understanding human behavior, how it's unfolding, what it could turn into, his historical patterns, religion often summarizes but doesn't give you a clear insight because we have tendency to flood religious thinking with too much morality and too many narratives. But it's not bad, it just has its place, right? 510 Media is really a leadership class. It's not this whole class is a leadership. Well, if this is just a generic class, we probably wouldn't be talking about none of this stuff. So leadership has to see, even step back further and see the value of religion without being limited by their value of religion. Right? So like I have totally value, like I sell, I'm not a Christian, but I sell, even though I believe in the Bible, which is gonna mess you up if you have a drink one day, you're like, I don't understand this brother. But I sell Pastor Chris church as if I'm his number one, like I'm a deacon or something in his church. Because I know the impact and value it has. But I would challenge some things in religion, not to say it's anti-religion. It's learning to think at a different level about religion. So religion doesn't have to change. We got to change.
I'm so glad you spoke on that, actually, because I actually don't believe in religion just because of the type of morals that it's around. Like, I don't know, just some of the things is just like, I don't want to teach people that, like, you know?
But I bet you one, you are religious if you don't. Even if you don't believe in it, unfortunately, you still are. And you just have a different
Am I
religion.
an atheist? I believe in God. Like,
Yeah, you're right. But I'm saying, but we all, like human beings, but whether you know it or not, we have religions. We can't escape. Like, it's so crazy. Even when we think we're not escaping it because our brain, the way our subconscious work, we still gravitate towards religious behavior, right? I would argue that most of us who became atheists because it's really like, okay, I'm done with this. That's enough of this, right? For whatever reason, it's too many complex stories to even try to tap into it. But as you evolve as a leader, it changes its value again. And you start saying, thank God for religion. Like literally, like you remove religion from human beings.
What's the storyline that keeps us safe?
It's a stabilization. It stabilizes everybody's not going to be thinking about how to build and scale the world. There's a group of people who just going to go to work every day happy as hell to see their families survive, retire, and die. Those individuals need something greater than me. If me and you get into a conflict, I need something greater than us to resolve that conflict. Because if it just comes down to my feeling against your feelings, that, as you can see in the hood, that can go really south really, really fast. So we can have our individual feelings about whatever we experience with religion, but if you step back rather from a society, it has its value to society. That's my argument with religion. Like, whether you Islamic, Christian, or any Hinduism or any other variation that's a healthy, and once again, I will look at, like, there are bad religions out there. I'm not trying to make them all good, right? But religion as a whole for human beings, you got to also look at this too. If religion played a role in getting us here, I talked about this about three classes ago. If you base your principle of what is valuable in life based upon survival, nothing else, because the only thing that matters is survival. And if religion played a role of getting us here, maybe our logic is flawed. That's a very important, like, where a lot of times we anchored our beliefs around good versus bad, right versus wrong. Our philosophical rationalization is about as, do you realize that rationalization changes so much that if you went back 100 years in time right now, your rationalization wouldn't even make any fucking sense to nobody? Morality never stays the same. Morality is always shifting. Like, there's no such thing as, this is what you should think. This is what everybody says. Matter of fact, travel to another continent, you'd be like, yeah, none of y'all believe in this shit? None of that stuff I believe in, right? So what you'll find is that religion got the current version of humans to this state. So if we go back, if we look at, okay, what has got us here? What has happened, and just from especially this liberal movement, we throwing our babies in bathwater. Some bad stuff got us here. Just did. Some good stuff got us here. And sometimes we're like, oh, it should be this way. Based on what? Your feelings? Or have you did a historical analysis of groups that survived with that mentality? There's been groups who brought in certain ideas, became Puritan in certain ideas, and they're not here.
I don't know why this just kind of popped up in my head when you said that, but it just kind of, I do a lot of like community organizing work, and I work with a lot of like nonprofits. And so it just kind of reminds me how most of the time with all these nonprofits that I've worked with over the few years, they seem to like bring like our poverty problems and things like that back to like colonization and racism. And I'm like, well, those are things that's inevitable at this point, right? So just things like that.
Oh, you say in this class, I'm going to rip the guts out of that. Because what I try to do is, so one of the things that's going to be very difficult to understand me is that, okay, I've been pro-black since I was 22. I'm 55, right? So that's 33 years of being black as hell. I got past the point of pointing fingers and right versus wrong and good and bad to saying, well, why did it happen? And when you start unlocking the why, it takes you down a whole different path. And when you start unlocking money, I still love African people. I'm still 100% committed. I have a life that's full of evidence that says, damn, he's really committed to black folks. But you realize that all the popular language out there is like pop culture shit. It means there's no substance there. And now it's flooding into the colleges, it's flooding into nonprofits, it's flooding into corporate America. And those ideas are horrible. And I will, if you stay with me for a whole year, I'll make a zillion cases of why I believe in diversity at the highest level, and I hate social justice. Because social justice is the methodology to achieve diversity. I love diversity. I hate social justice. I hate all that
I
stuff.
think it's the way that some of these organizations go about trying to get it across, like their point, or just to, get that, what did you call it? That status, right? Like,
Yeah, it's a
all
game.
about the money, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, social justice is absolutely a game. It's a game of status. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with saving black people. Ask poor black people. They don't know what the fuck. They ain't never seen Black Lives Matter a day in their life. I should keep rolling. Keep rolling. You go to the hood, be like, y'all seen Black Lives Matter around here? Shit, no. Come on, man.
Pastor Chris is online acting up.
What are you talking about, the Lakers again?
No, he said Deacon Nana.
Tell him cut it out. Tell him
No.
cut it out.
Okay. Okay, this was especially true in the case of Theranos' moonshot technology that required years of research and development. In the absence of a market-ready product whose success could be measured, Theranos investors relied on social proof rather than hard data.
Social proof, I mean that they call it the Paris Hilton effect. You're famous because you're famous. Before you heard about Black Lives Matter through a famous pipeline, how many of you guys heard about Black Lives Matter movement? Before you heard about Black Lives Matter, after they became popular, how many of you guys heard about the battles they won before they became popular? Huh? Well, before we just, without going to the scamming part, we just separate, because I don't think that scamming part was intentional. I think we should blame ourselves, not them. We should blame ourselves, not them, but it's called the Paris Hilton effect. They became famous, which made them famous. But it's not like, okay, in theory, for Black Lives Matter to receive that level of fame, you would have said, oh, they did this, they did this, they did this, they climbed up there, they proved themselves, and then all of a sudden we said, yo, let them do it. But what happened is a hashtag made a group of sisters who were good people trying to do work. Don't play that game with, trust me, because it could be you. Don't do that, because you're going to make it become depressing as fuck when you get there. They was doing the work, right? And as they did the work, they were blessed into a role, the Paris Hilton effect, where they became famous because they was famous, and they're running on this whole social proofing. Because now everybody's loading up where they're everywhere, so I'm with them too. You do it in stores all the time. You get in lines all the time because it looks like, oh, that's where everybody's going. I'm going there too. Right? That's a human behavior. And so same thing happened. These are millionaires who are extremely smart, threw away millions of dollars in the company. Let's keep going. Let's get to see this. Keep going. Okay, how was it? Did I skip one?
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Holmes was smart and charismatic, allowing her to win over investors who then vouched for her to other investors, leading to a bandwagon effect.
Black Lives Matter. Keep going.
Moreover, thanks to confirmation bias, investors with a financial stake in the company likely overlooked signs that ran counter to their expectation that the company would be a massive success.
Black Lives Matter. Keep going.
And these weren't people born yesterday. They included business titans like Rupert Murdoch, Carlos Slim, and Larry Ellison.
And people in this class. Keep going.
Could this debacle have been avoided? Or are some people simply bad actors whose duplicitous behavior can't be prevented?
Pause. Many of you guys focus on the second one. People are bad actors. That's why they turn that stuff down. The bad actors makes you ignorant. Keep going.
The answer comes down to incentives.
Uh-oh.
Thanks to her stock options, Elizabeth Holmes had the most to gain from Theranos' success and would do anything for success.
Which is status. Keep going.
At one point, those options were valued at over $4 billion.
Let me help you out because some of y'all don't know how to count. $4,000 million. Keep going.
In other words, she had $4 billion incentives to pull off a win with the technology.
You got a chance to make to be part of $4,000 million. Just give me 10%. I'm good with that. $400 million. You have a chance to gain $500 million if you just win this one game you playing. How many people you expect to do what the hell she about to do? Come on, let's keep it real. Let's keep going. Some of y'all do it for a couple of dollars. Let's keep it real. Let's go.
I almost said something. Okay. The long-term incentive of financial success gave way to the short-term one of hiding the truth to put off the inevitable disaster.
Mm-hmm.
She was highly motivated to keep the plane in the air with new fuel, money, rather than making sure it could actually stay aloft with a real product and business plan.
Black Lives Matter. I am now the most powerful black woman in the United States right now. I will do what the fuck it takes to keep the system going, even if I can't see rhyme or reason. You see how we set them up? Keep going.
But fuel was not infinite, making a crash unavoidable.
Keep going.
As was the case at Theranos for employees who were attacked for raising red flags about problems inside the company, then threatened with lawsuits for speaking out publicly.
Mm-hmm.
If so, they may consciously or unconsciously alter their reports to protect themselves.
This is all the people surround Black Lives Matter and all the people who bought into it. Once you question Black Lives Matter, the reason they're going to protect them, it's not because they actually believe in them, it's because now their reputation is tied to their previous commitment and relationships to Black Lives Matter. This is not an anti-Black Lives Matter, but this happens across the board all the time. This is why we can't let go of certain icons in our lives, certain leaders in our lives, because we attached our own personal story to these people. Keep going.
But what if there were rewards or at least a contractual guarantee, barring punishment, for sharing data that challenged the company's assumptions or hopes?
Mm-hmm.
Then they would be incentivized to report the truth, which will eventually come to light one way or another.
So what is important for your business? When you run a company, a lot of times when you're a leader, you can blindly get used to praise and the value that comes along with being part of a certain group. So if you let that praise and that overvaluing get out of control, you make your company weak. So you have to incentivize your employees to challenge your truths to make your company strong. You are not going to make your company strong if it supports just you. In all things, ego is the enemy. But what you have to do is incentivize people on your team to help you keep your company trial and true. This is why smart partnerships, smart relationships, and people that don't overvalue you is critical for company stability. Go ahead.
Theranos.
No, not you. Behind you.
Oh.
Lily had a. He's like, let's go.
I always want to say yes. I didn't realize it at first, but since being in this class, I definitely think that affected me with basketball and not being able to let go. Was even though I wasn't focused on the praise and all of that stuff, it still played a part into why I feel like a failure and why I was scared.
No. You told yourself you wasn't focused on the praise. Let me be very clear. That's a narrative game.
Okay.
You walk into a room and people are screaming your name, and people are jumping upside down. There are people right now there's people that won't leave prison because in prison they have more status than they will in the real world. People will kill you to remove their status. A human being will kill you if you steal away their status. If you want to make a human being kill themselves, make them fall from their status, right? So it is a very depressing thing unless you know that's a thing. So what you have to do is you have a hunger for status. Nothing wrong with that. You got to now start all over and attach your status to something else. You can't stop playing the game. You got to shift the game. But don't 99% of people in this room, if they had your experience, would have the exact same feelings. That means you're normal as hell. Normal as hell. But you have to know the power of, because what that, you know what that crowd said to you? I told you, in Hope, in all the years I taught Hope, most people suffer from feeling like they're not good enough. When you're in front of that crowd, they told you you were greater than all of us.
Facts.
And then when you come off of that and it's gone, it's like, then how do I measure my greatness? Who am I? It's almost like you're sitting in a void with no foundation float. That shit is terrifying. So there's a need to reattach your sense of value and self, and it's a transition period. And you should say that. I gotta go through my transition period. That allows you to look at your past wisely and not live with regret and welcome the new. But if you look at it as it should have been a certain kind of way, then you've got a narrative and you have people in your life that's keeping you at level 1 and you'll never see level 3.
Yeah, and I could be honest, in that transition period, it's hard to go through personal development when you're in survival.
This is a perfect example of what people feel like when they if you at your company right now, the one reason y'all can't leave your company, because they're giving you status. You leave your company and you got to start over as an entrepreneur. You start off as zero status. Now, this is why a lot of you guys can't wait to brag about, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur now. Yeah, I'm out here doing things. Ain't made $2. Yeah, I'm out here making it work. Well, the reason you're in love with this is because in the end, you're seeking community status for being an entrepreneur. But in theory, the reason it's so difficult is I have to leave this game I've been playing called corporate America all my life to play a game called entrepreneur, and I don't even know the fucking rules. So some of y'all sit in this class like, no, when you gonna give me enough comfort? Because I need to see more comfort to make the jump, because I'm gonna be nobody for a little while. But if you could attach your value to a deeper story, it can help the transition.
Is it inevitable to, do we all want status?
Everybody does. You can't avoid it. And, by the way, let me talk to my non-gender people. 90% of all homicides in the world are committed by men. And 70% of the people that we kill are women. So gender difference, right? So you can easily say men are very aggressive animals. No, we're both very aggressive animals. You guys just do it differently. Women have aggressive, they're more indirect. They will destroy your reputation. They will destroy your name. They will destroy so much around you, right? Now there's something, it depends. In India, the women kill. They get down. And they gain status for killing. Meaning if you break a culture standard, an Indian woman will kill you and she gets ranked for, I killed him. The family will be like, oh yeah, I love Auntie Lisa. Auntie Lisa will kill your ass in a minute, right? But in the rest of the world, it's mostly men. Meaning women, you guys can become the physical killers. At the end of the day, the number one reason men kill, so we kill 90% of the people in the world, men kill 90% of the homicides committed by men. You know the number one reason why men kill? Huh? Respect, which is status. I felt disrespected. Some cold shit. Now, going back to you. When somebody pulls away your status like that from your sports career, you're feeling all those emotions on 10. And what we need, here's an excellent opportunity, is for somebody to help us transition from that status game to the new status game. All right, Shabisha, let's keep going. Oh, go ahead.
And just to reiterate it, status is a human need. It's not,
yes.
Some people have it, some people don't. You can have, it is every human's, it's part of the hierarchy of needs. So psychologists have already deemed this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all the scientists. So you actually need status.
Like food.
Just like food. However, it's like he talked about with game theory, it's at a certain level of the game. So when you're at the bottom of the game and it's just survival, you're trying to eat, then you have a tendency to be more hungry because you're focusing on just survival. Once you get past survival and the smoke of survival is clear, now you're looking for a little bit of status. I want to be respected now. And that's where the game theory happens, where that status bug starts coming out. And some people fake it, be like, I don't want the fame. It's just they're directing it in a different direction. It's indirect, but it's a need for all of us.
In prison, at the lowest part of the game, if you are a lifer and a killer, you're at the top of the status game. If you're a rapist, you're at the bottom of the status game. You'll find status game played. It's ridiculous how it's a need of a human being in our survival because it's part of our herd mentality. We are herd. When he says we are herd animals, status is what keeps the herd together. The same status is the same thing that allows us to create great societies as well. America is a status symbol, right? The conveniences of these nice cars you drive, nice places you stay in, and nice clothes you wear came from a status game being played. So it's not all bad. But you got to know how to pick and choose the team you want to be on because you are not choosing the team will choose you. Pass the microphone back.
I'm going to try to phrase this as best as I can, but because I've been holding the question, but each time you keep on talking, I'm like, I need to ask it. So you mentioned earlier on in the conversation that this information that we are absorbing is not necessarily, not everybody's going to be able to understand it. Right?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Right. So is the objective to teach as a leader so other people can know that like this is kind of like the downfall of society is everybody's tied to a status? Like, is it our goal, I guess, as leaders to teach these concepts? But how do we do that if it's something that people really aren't going to understand? Like, does that make sense?
Okay, so you're being introduced to the tool where I get the most rawest form. Like if I taught you what thyme does or what basil does, right? It's not for you to go out and just start giving people basil leaves.
Okay.
Won't last, right? At some point, you have to put this into a formula because being an entrepreneur is not a recipe. I don't give you to put this in. I give you the ingredients, but the mixture of the ingredients is what makes your business so strong, right? Once you understand status and how human beings are moving, you start unlocking opportunities around you, how to drive certain things around you. If that's a necessary need, you're not trying to remove status. You're trying to structure smart status. It's not like you're not trying to destroy incentives. You're trying to use incentives to drive a better cause. You use incentives in your house with your children all the time, right? Your job uses incentives every day when they hired you. When you go out on a date, you both are trying to incentivize. It's a part of life you just can't walk away from. But there's also, on the other side of that, pimps, drug dealers, bad fundamentalist programs, cults, all use incentives. So let's say you're 19, you're taking this class. You should be able to go to Herbalife meeting and go, this is full of shit. You see all the tricks. But if you don't know this stuff, and mind you, you can also understand that when you're trying to get people to do something that works for their own interest, you use some of those tricks. But you can get past all the magic tricks and go, but what are you actually saying? You realize, oh, you ain't saying shit, because you did the numbers. But for the person who doesn't understand these games, they're locked into the incentives, and that's how they're viewing the numbers through the incentives. So they have motivated reasoning, which is, I only see what I want to see, right? And so the whole purpose of this is not to, the reason this is a leadership class, the average person has not enough bandwidth or not enough motivation to even want to hold on to this kind of information. Like if you teach, go to a sports bar and try to teach any of this stuff and see how it feels. Just like a scientist can't go share their shit at most public events, right? A doctor can't go and get the deep details in most public events. He can tell you like, hey, your knee hurt, go see this doctor, put some Robitussin on it. Done, right? But what they can't tell you is the science of how the knee works, because that's why you're like, wrap it up. The game's playing, wrap it up, right? That's the reality of the masses. It's when you decide you want to take on a leadership role. Now, here's the funny part. This class will teach you more about parenting than parenting books. Because parenting books suggest if you do this, this will impact your child. This class is going to tell you maybe it would, maybe it won't. And also, too, everything starts with yourself. Take radical responsibility for everything that happens to you, and you can unlock a lot. It'll help you like step further and further back and go, hey, how's this education and parenting and environment, the school my child is in, how's this all speaking to my child, and how is it gaming my child up? If you take your child, you put them in Frick, what game are they playing there? You take them to Head Royce, what game are they playing there? Now, the same child can go to both of those schools, or twins can go to both of those schools, but because you put them in two different game theories, as they rise up in that game, you might not like the one the Frick rose up into. He was successful. It's just that game, it's another game you want him to play. So a lot of times we don't realize what we want in our life. We don't structure an environment for the game that our children have to play because we don't understand that there's a game that we're all playing. They're starting to play the game at one. So all their friends, this is why rich people control who they marry, who they hang out with, and where they go hang out with. They understand in order for us to keep this game going, the game that we created here, we got to protect the game theory. And once we start letting our kids play that liberal shit, they can easily start switching up and getting. Now I have 20 kids in my house, everybody playing, what is this shit y'all playing? What is this shit? So at the end of the day, it's like, in order for us to get what we want, we have to understand that we're playing games here. It's a cold game.
It's chestnut.
No pun intended. So, all right, let's keep going, Shamisha.
Okay. Theranos would have collapsed sooner and less disastrously had the company operated in this fashion.
Okay, yeah, keep going. Let me see. So they're saying if you did put the internal mechanisms to check and balance itself, it would have collapsed sooner. It would have collapsed faster. You might say, well, damn, then she could have lost money. Yeah, but the problem is that there's a point where incentives can take you from being motivators to being destroyer, right? What's the famous Enron? They created an intense incentive game that took them too far. You can make incentives too competitive, and it can make people go from being moral to being immoral. So you got to know how to manage incentives. Not, I'm gonna tell everybody, if you get here, I'm gonna give you $1 million, and then all of a sudden you start having people killing each other next week. You're like, what the hell happened? And you find out that the person that killed everybody was grandma. You're like, what? Granny killed everybody? Hey, incentives was a cold game. You don't know who's gonna take advantage of it at the highest level. And that's based upon that human nature. Some people are alpha animals, some people are kind of peaceful animals. They're gonna approach it differently, but they all coming for it. The best way did pretty good. Okay. Oh, sorry, that's do one.
Yep, that one.
Okay, there you go.
The more general question of incentives for employees is a crucial issue for scaling up any product and initiative. When I was at Uber, if a manager had an idea that he or she thought had the potential to benefit the company, guess who was in charge of testing the idea? That same manager.
Bad idea.
Guess how people were promoted at Uber? By putting forth product ideas that were shipped.
Bad idea.
Of course, showing data in a way that highlights the strengths of an idea or downplays the weaknesses is much different from knowingly falsifying data.
Mm-hmm.
But the solution to both is the same.
So what he's saying is that even though I falsified data, doesn't mean that was my causation. My brain skewed it unconscious to me. This is, once again, motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning says this: you're dating somebody, everybody else knows that person ain't shit. You can't say they ain't shit. When you break up, in hindsight, you can now sit at the table with your girlfriends and talk about he ain't shit. But when you was with him, you thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. The same thing happens with your business ideas when you are the center focus of rationalizing, is it a good idea, a bad idea? The reason you need people around you who will challenge you, who think different, who have different interests in you, who have no problem challenging you, is because your motivated reasoning will have you reasoning a bad, horrible, incentivized idea that feels so real, so good. And at the end of the day, you don't realize the reason is also driven because you're being incentivized by, especially if you're the black folks who receive money from these organizations that gave you $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, that's performing this stupid ass idea. You can't even tell us a stupid ass idea because you got 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400, which is an incentive. And you get a chance to be the person in the poor community that says, I got $400,000 to help all y'all to get an instant status upgrade. You see the game on this shit? So you need somebody like a court who don't give a shit about you and your program to say, let me look at the numbers. Well, how the fuck is this gonna work? Doesn't mean your idea can't work, but if you get caught in the conversation, you get a chance to have earlier times. You have enough advanced time to actually start to adjust your strategy to actually produce a decent strategy. Objective view. You will not have objective view by yourself. Stop thinking. You have to know your limitations to understand your strengths. You got to know your limitations in order to understand your strengths. And so it's critical to have the right people around you to prevent you from doing this shit right here. And now on a hindsight, we can all say, oh, Brett Favre is just, I can't believe he stole all those money from those poor people. If you don't understand incentives, he wasn't being evil, he was blind. A lot of people who done racist shit against us wasn't being racist, they were blind. And guess what? How many of you guys like iPhones? Anybody? Raise your hand. Anybody like iPhones? Okay. So you guys understand that you guys do some fucked up shit to somebody. But you're blind to it. You're not waking up in the morning talking about, those kids gonna get to work. I don't give a fuck. I need my phone. That's not what you're saying. No one would say that, right? That's some gangster shit, right? but what you're saying is, I want a phone. And if it impacts certain people, you're like, oh, I didn't know that. But you don't get rid of your phone. You don't go get a Samsung. You do the same thing.
Somebody got to go to work.
Yeah, that's the brain. And that's because of cognitive dissonance. But honestly, that does happen. Because of cognitive dissonance, your brain, in order for you to feel comfortable, you create a narrative to make yourself comfortable. So then when you speak your narrative openly, and Shakina hears, well, I got slaves because at the end of the day, Mammy back here don't want to work hard, and I refuse to go out there and pick some goddamn cotton. So why not have those little blackheads go out there and pick it? But what he is incentivized is by the status from the money that, you understand how much money cotton was making? It was one of the top trades on Wall Street at the time. New York was saying, keep picking that motherfucking cotton because it is crazy the impact of that. So now you got 200 slaves pumping cotton like never before. You so incentivize, your brain will start to shape cognitive dissonance, you're unconscious of the transformation. You're not even conscious of it. And then it even helps you out more when your circle says, yeah, we all agree with that. You're like, yeah, okay, I feel good about that. We all agree with that. You might say, well, why did you do that? Because you can become a slave master if you don't understand that. Make some money and start hiring help. See what happens. Let the microphone move. Just go 1, 2, 3. We'll just do a circle. Yeah, make it. No, well, okay. Yeah, Shakina, go ahead. Hit it real quick. Okay, this is a. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's a whole bunch of stuff going on in my head, so I'm gonna try to really simplify this.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard you say the thing about the iPhone, my brain wanted to go into defensive space because I'm like
white women.
Everything that we
and
have,
liberals?
somebody got to go labor for it, right?
What? No.
But then again, I am conscious and aware that that's a defensive space. So then I'm like, okay, let me challenge that defensive space. Most people, because of guilt or that's just the way it is or whatever storyline they're telling themselves, are gonna figure out a way to justify all of the amazing things that we have, like especially if you're living in America.
White women. Mm-hmm.
So
I just want to show you how we're more similar than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So then, and I also understand that we don't want to look at this as like a right and wrong or good or bad thing, because we can't control a lot of aspects of, like, if you live in America and you don't want to be homeless, there's just going to be certain things that other people are going to suffer for your benefit, right? How do you have an emotionally intelligent conversation without just like sounding like an asshole? Like, if you look at it from the facts of it, right? Probably every person in this room has something that was made from somebody that didn't want to make it. Your clothes, your glasses.
And when you go to
your
Chinese
whatever,
restaurant,
right?
half those workers are not getting paid.
Like, they're not getting paid. They're slaving for it. But then, like, I listened to a podcast and they were talking about the enslavement of Chinese culture and prostitution and how they're like forced to do things.
People don't see it. It's really bad.
And the person's defense for their aunt was, yeah, but my aunt was working in labor and was making 30 cents a day. At least prostituting, she can voluntarily do that and make dollars a day, right? So it gives like not saying like go out and be a prostitute, not my message, but
Yeah, you understand me? Don't bring Nana. Oh, Nana, shut up. Go ahead.
keep playing.
I'm playing. I'm not. No, I don't. I hate pimps.
But
I really do. I hate pimps. It's not my favorite thing. I have a daughter. You know I really hate pimps. Go ahead.
It a lot of the things that I'm learning in class, like I'm trying to figure out the simplified version of how to understand this so that I
So
can then
let me help you out with this real quick. Go back to what I said earlier. This judgmental undertone we have, superiority that we play all the time. If you take what I'm saying, let's use the character, the model of Jesus Christ. It makes you humble. It makes you see value in people. It makes you love. It makes you realize that us versus them is another distortion, right? Why is that important? Because when you grow your business, you can't think like that. Success is going to come from smart collaborations with smart people, and it's going to be a diverse crowd of people. It's going to also be able to accept that life ain't always going to be pretty and ain't always be ugly. This whole idea of trying to purify life is kind of really a liberal, it's a movement, it's a belief system. It's thinking of the world through morality. That's why I said earlier, you can't look at the world through morality, otherwise you're not gonna get nothing I'm saying right now. You have to start to be able to see that, hey, listen, as you jump on this team, most people are jumping on the I've been victimized team, but let's look at what's the cost of that to you. You're stealing a lot of your attention, right? I told somebody the other day, if Black Lives Matter decided tomorrow, we don't care no more, we out. How much damage has that left behind? She said, what'd she say? What'd she say?
I already thought they was thieves, so loud.
No, yeah, that's what I said. But a lot of people walk around because what Black Lives Matter spawned was this idea that somebody is supposed to show up and help you out, or supposed to care about you being here. When the reality is most human beings only care about themselves. Why is this important that you unlock the way human beings really think? Because when you run a company and you're using models based upon Disney stories and myths, and you wonder why you're failing, because you're never connected to the true story. So it's a necessity to understand the way people really process the world around them. So when you develop smart systems, you can really measure it accurately, as opposed to getting drunk off the narrative that's spinning off, especially nonprofits. They get drunk off their own narratives. They don't see the people they're seeking to serve. They get told that they start thinking that they have this magic sauce, but they're more disconnected from people than a little bit, right? And so at the end of the day, it's being able to align your strategies, your systems, your thinking to the people you're seeking to serve. And so I'm not here by no means trying to suggest. If you take the moral conversation out of everything we're saying, I'm describing human behavior and how there's this commonality that a lot of times we think is, white people, black people, this, the other, when it's really not about those things. And if you start talking that kind of shit as an entrepreneur, this is why you're gonna fail. Building a company is not social justice movement. That's another form of thinking that has nothing to do with building a company. Matter of fact, building a company is the ultimate act of diversity. You want the best of the best of different experiences. I don't give a shit what your background, race, gender, whatever it is, if I'm trying to build something, because I need the brilliance of that. Now, mind you, you don't get to sit at my table and you trans, but you don't have nothing to offer. Get your ass up, go. Right? But if you trans and you bring in some heat, and some of it is driven by your experiences as a trans person, I need that. I need your insight. Because that diversity gives me a richer, more creative product that allows me to target a larger audience or be able to expand to a broader audience. Okay, so you got to go with this. So it's learning to think on a broader scale. Go ahead. Okay.
I got two questions. One was when you said that the incentives over slavery, I'm not going to pick the cotton. My question is, if it's not intentional, why? It's hard to understand that for me, because it's like they chose black people to be the group to do it. Why not somebody else?
Because
Why
you're looking
not
at the world through current logic. You got to go back to the logic of that time, the way the human brain worked at the time. It's just like if you go to other countries, so Woman King, the story of Woman King, right? What they didn't tell you, one of the stories about that is that particular group at the end of the year, they capture you, like say you was a prisoner of war. They would make you a slave, and to the end of the year, they would then sacrifice. They would kill you, murder you, and sacrifice you to the gods, right? Now you can say all day long that don't make no damn sense, because you're not born in that time. When you're born, logic and rationalization and moral is constantly shifting. So you can't use current day morality, rationalization, and logic to understand the past. You would have to actually go sit in the past at that time, see where they came from, what rationalization they were living by, and then how they arrived to that point of that logic. Not say, I would do it that way. Now you're just completely outside the box of discussion.
Okay. And then my second question is, how do you explore like your why to better understand like what your why is? Like if you were to ask me what my why is, I'm still struggling to give a simple, clear answer. I feel like I know what my purpose is, but I'm not really sure. But I'm still motivated and showing up, but I'm still kind of rerouting when it comes to what is your why. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, okay. I think I taught that like 3 or 4 classes. Back,
I wasn't here. Life
that's
is life. And
that's a
come
big
on, just
one. Like,
bear with me.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to find which class that is, and I'm going to pinpoint you back to that lesson, because that's a long lesson of how to define your purpose and how to find your purpose. Because that's a legitimate question that you should ask and needs to be answered. But as you develop a bigger narrative, it will help you be able to navigate amongst a lot of different other narratives. Is when you have a weak narrative, then you can be hijacked by the most superficial narrative of all times. Right. But I find that podcast, because I find a class. Go ahead, go ahead, Court.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say, I think that's why it's important to really adopt the fact that we got to let go of right and wrong, because most of these questions surround right and wrong, good and bad, evil and good, all those. Once you adopt everything that Nana's been teaching, we've been teaching for the last couple of years around right and wrong, the first question is, that's interesting.
There you go.
That's interesting. Oh, they eat people's brains? I wonder what that is about. I want to learn more. Because
really?
Every culture does something, including this one, that's disgusting to other people. The fact that you eat cow disgusts people in India because they worship cows. Cows are their gods. So when you talk about eating meat from a cow, they're appalled by it. You're savages. So it's all perspective. All perspective. So once we, as entrepreneurs, we pull the right and wrong out, no matter what it is. You go to a tribe in Africa and they have this crazy thing that you think is crazy, but once you're in the context of their culture, you realize, oh, because you guys they don't even have running water at all. This tribe doesn't have running water, nowhere to be found. So they spit in these buckets and they drink it as their water. The women spend all day to spit in the bucket, stir it around, and then that's what they drink. And that's a true story. So, fuck right and wrong.
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you. So let me show you how this works in business. So now it's time to grow your business, expand your business. You know why you can't? Because you landlocked to your morals and your values, your principles, and what you think. If you decide to put a business in Mississippi, and then turn around and put one in Boston, and they put one in California, and they put one in Seattle, and they put one in New York, they're going to have different foundations of beliefs that's attached to them because of the market they seek to serve. That's the reality. Like when you're in New York it's like, man, fuck your little feelings. Get the fuck out of here. And California's like, oh my God, that's just morally incorrect to say that. What if you don't even know what my feelings feel like, right? And Mississippi's like, I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. If you ain't going to do this shit right here, you can get the fuck up out of here, boy. Right? Those are all different motivations of employees you're about to hire. But some of y'all so landlocked on these beliefs, you can't expand. You can't scale. We're talking about scaling right now. Loosen up. Break the system loose so you can start growing, because your roots can't grow because your ground too damn hard. Let's roll.
But the solution to both is the same: independent replication, which is just as crucial for businesses as it is for scientists. If someone has an idea, it should be someone else with no stake in the idea, who doesn't stand to benefit financially, who should test it out or at least replicate it before it is shipped. Otherwise, incentives potentially conflict with full honesty.
There you go. So when you're able to replicate your idea, I mean that, and sometimes just so you can, there's different layers of replicating. First, you could share the story of what you plan on doing with somebody, right? And you tell them your strategy. And then they like, I don't make any sense. I don't really get it. Everybody's like, I can't understand your story, right? We had one of our students who had an idea and no one can understand their idea. Bad idea. Then two, as you start to expand certain things, you want to test it in small samples, which is the minimal viable product. What is the minimal you can put into something to test an idea? The minimal. I don't give a fuck if it's just, I'm going to hold up a paper sign every day and see if people punch a hole through it. If they didn't punch a hole, the idea was horrible, right? Then what you want to do is you want to be able to test your ideas in different environments by different employees driving your idea. If every idea requires your hand, I got to be there to make this idea work, it's a bad idea. Because you don't even see the variations in your approach, because you're so hooked to making it work, you don't realize you're actually adjusting the idea, and then when you decide to put it as a system that everybody on your team needs to follow, that adjustment's not there. They're going to just follow it like a simple recipe, right? So like, I used to work, when I was 18, I worked at McDonald's. And every McDonald's you went to followed the exact same procedure to the T. They don't give a shit about your race, your background, your gender, your sex. Those ideas were tested in a lab that says if you follow these same principles everywhere you go, whether you are in Mississippi, New York, Seattle, or California, you're gonna have the same burger experience, right? That's scalable. What is not scalable is, hey man, Juan gotta flip that burger that way. If Juan ain't cooking the burgers, this shit gonna never be right. You don't have a method. So replication by team members and other people, there's different layers of just developing replication and new ground-shaking ideas. We're not talking about, don't replicate what toilet tissue, should I get toilet tissue in my bathroom? Get some toilet tissue in the bathroom, don't do that, right? But you might replicate which toilet tissue to choose. Because quiet as it kept, the wrong toilet tissue could lose you a certain percentage of your customers. Now that's if you only got 30 customers and only lose you one, that's nothing. But if you got 3,000 customers and it lose you 300 customers, that's a lot more money. Because you just didn't take time to figure out what's the best toilet tissue. So the larger you grow, the more minor your decision, the more detail you have to get into your decision making, because you'd be surprised how you drive people's interest. Keep going. Good.
So the best way to protect yourself from dupers is by keeping incentives top of mind.
Keeping incentives, always remember, if somebody says they're doing something for you or women, y'all know this game. If a man does something nice for you, know their incentive. Some of y'all pretty motherfuckers be killing me. He just trying to be nice. I don't think that's an incentive for most dudes. I don't think that's working for me. I kind of know the incentives, but I don't think it's gonna fit your narrative. Right? But if you're clear about the incentives, they're like, yo, since I'm gonna help you out, I'm gonna help you build your business, I'm gonna help you with these things, I'm gonna help you. Okay? He's looking for coochie points. to keep it 100. If you cool with that and that's what you want to do, shit, rock the Casbah. But if that ain't what you're trying to do, it's an old song from the 80s, Rock the Casbah, right? I never knew what the fuck Rock the Casbah was, but I just figured like, hey, it must be good because he keeps singing it, right? But the reality is that you have to always be very clear on what is the incentive of everybody you engage. I want to do business with you. I want to do partnerships with you. I want to work for you. I'm looking for a promotion. Can I spend some time with you? Can you invest in me? Learn to see human incentives. It tells you more about, because otherwise, okay, Shakina walks in and she's dressed in a way that makes you feel good. You see, like, I like the way she's dressed, right? Then she speaks about commonality. Oh, you have a 4-year-old daughter? I had a 4-year-old daughter. Oh, and then you start sharing stories, right? You've developed this skewed reasoning, right? Then, let's say that day you had a whole bunch of good experiences. So now you even have kind of like a environmental motivation to kind of make a decision. Without incentives, you're played. You inside the incentive game, you'd be like, yeah, I understand all shit just happened, but that's all smoke and mirrors. The incentive is this. This is why when I go, this is how I whip car dealerships all the time. What is your incentive, bro? I'm not about to sit here and all that shit you about to talk to me about and drive the car and, hey, man, I love red too. Oh, my God, you love red too? My daughter has pigtails. Well, my daughter has Afro Puffs, but okay, we work with that. But, you know, we go back and forth with all these little jokes, right? And at the end of the day, you have one incentive. It's to sell cars and make a profit. Everything else is irrelevant. As long as I stayed with that, then I don't never I don't get, all my emotions go up and down, I can laugh. Oh my God, you're so funny. Oh man, you could be my brother. But your incentive is to sell me the car for maximum profit. So at the end of the day, we still have a battle on our hands. Once you clear by incentives in business, you can move totally different. Too many of you guys get caught up in all these narratives and stories you tell yourself in my past. And you know what? I'm gonna buy a car from Brother John because first of all, he's a black man. And you know it's hard out here for black men. And matter of fact, my cousin said one day she almost got in a fight and John stood in the way and stopped the fight from happening. And so anything, I feel like I owe him, so I'm gonna go down here and negotiate because I'm gonna see what, and John gets you for $30,000. Was that really worth $30,000 though? Now you say I let go $2,000 because I felt like, fuck, I'm gonna let that $2,000 go. That's cool. But $30,000? $10,000? $15,000? Really? But if you saw the incentives, you would have never got caught with that. You'll laugh like, yo, thank you for what you did for my cousin. Hey man, I can bake your apple pie and get a chance, but for this car, this is what I'm gonna pay right over here. Let's keep the shit 100.
So question for the incentive games. So say you have two people, right? And you know each person has their own incentive, like I want this from person A wants this from person B. Would it be okay, because sometimes this happens, right? I can tell somebody wants something from me. Can I just say, okay, so let's be real. Let's just put all your cards out on the table. Instead of playing the game, just tell me what you want. And then I'll tell you what I'm working with.
It can't do that. The brain can't even do it.
So you have to like engage in that back and forth?
People can't read their incentives or their status games because they only can read their narrative. And if his narrative is really telling him he really cares, deep down inside he's horny, but in his brain he's caring. So he can't see it. So you go, brother, keep it real with me. He's keeping it real based on one of his incentives. His incentive says he cares about you being successful, but his body's going. His loins are saying, well, you know. I'm trying to use the cleanest words I can. His loins. I'm just trying to keep it as clean as possible. But his loins are calling on him to have a different response. So unfortunately, most people don't see this game they're playing. 99% of people don't see the game of incentives and the game of gaming theory. Once you learn it, you see how everybody's playing it unconsciously, but consciously we call it something else so we can't see it. That's why I say this is a leadership class. Somebody can be playing incentive games so clear as all day long. You say, hey, why'd you stay there? Why did you not leave? They'd be like, because I just feel like I like these people. They use all these other phrases instead of saying, well, because I would be giving them incentives and I didn't want to give that up. It's that simple. Keep rolling.
I feel like about loins how you feel about asking another man for lotion. We need to come to an agreement.
I'm just trying, there's some people who getting their feelings hurt when I get loose. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep it control, a little bit low control. I don't want people like at home talking about, I don't know how to feel about hope. All right, go ahead.
For example, someone thinking about buying a company should consider if the seller wants to stay involved or not.
Real quick, that's okay. This book has got so much game in it, but he doesn't go deep as he can. If an investor comes to your company to buy your company, because a lot of us are just in the game of selling businesses, which I have no problem with that because you ain't gonna live forever anyway. So get out of that shit. Once you get to a certain point, if somebody come to you and say, yo, if I got $20 million right now, I'll be cool for the next 30, 40 years without flaws. If I got 40 million, 50 million, I'll be cool. And somebody offer you that 50 million and you can get that bag, let that shit go and let your personality and attach your status to something else. But anyway, so let somebody come to you right now and they offer to buy your business. If your business is not structured strong enough, they're gonna ask you to stay with the company until they are able to reach a certain point or go public. Why? Because your company is based upon you too much. So quite often they would tell you to stay as they pull you out of the company and place parts of you into different portions of the company, and the company can run efficiently without you. But the company runs depending upon you. Your company is usually the reason they put conditions on sales. So what he's talking about is that when you're buying a company, an investor walks in and see how much the company evolves around your leadership or your engagement, and then when they decide to purchase your company, they will say, well, okay, I purchased this company, but you got to stay and work for the company as an employee or a president. So you hear when some people say they purchased my company, but I'm still as a CEO or a president, it's because you're too involved in decision making daily. Keep going.
If the seller is planning to keep a stake in the company, they are incentivized to act in the company's best interest.
That's the reason why. There you go.
If they don't want to keep a stake when they sell, this may be because they know negative things about the research, product, or market that you don't. Only you know how good the data truly are. Only they know how good the data truly are. I once conducted an experiment simulating this scenario with a group of MBAs playing the role of entrepreneurs with an idea to sell, but only they had the data indicating whether or not the idea was scalable. They were then presented with various deals from which they could choose. In one case, the entrepreneur received immediate payment and went on their way. In others, the entrepreneur's payment would depend on how well the product actually performed when it went to market. This is a form of sharing profit flow in the parlance of economics. As one would expect, the entrepreneurs who knew they had a
What did she? She might just. Oh, okay, so she might have cut it off. So let me just go over this real quick. Even in buying a company, selling a company, you're reading incentives. Anytime you engage with another human being, look for the incentive. Anytime you jump into a system that requires human management, look for the incentives. In your employees, look for the incentives. If you don't pay attention to the incentives and you get caught up in all the little narratives they're telling you, you don't see your own employees.
So, if you just hired somebody, so like I just hired a new person, right? And just finished training them. They're about to start working next week at my gym. Would it just be like rude or upfront for me to just be like, so I know what my incentives are to hire you. What are your
They can't tell you. They can't tell you. You got to learn to see incentives, and people will tell you eventually because it will come out in like what they gravitate towards or what they kind of lean towards, what they're talking towards. It's your job to read it, not to ask them. Because when you ask, they don't come to. They're not in hope. They're not gonna know what the fuck you just said. That's like That's like a doctor come to you asking you something about chemicals in your body. You'd be like, what? Say, come again. What the hell does that mean? How would I know this? Right? It's a doctor's job to know how to seek that out and extract that information. Right? And then even when you get that sheet and they say 60% this, 2%, 4, 5, 6, 7, you don't know what the fuck that shit means, right? It's the doctor that says, okay, this number here means that you're pre-diabetic or you're not, or you're whatever. But you don't know what those codes mean, right? Right now you're learning the code. Your job is to learn how to be observant of people and not fall in love with their fucking narratives. Wait. Y'all don't get how powerful when I say fuck your story means. I live with that rhythm all the time because people are running stories to me all the time. And what I'm doing is I'm observing your patterns, and in your patterns there's a deeper communication.
But for like a new hire, I haven't had the chance to observe their patterns.
So that's where you start. You know, you're not talking probability, you're talking guarantee. This is a tool for you to understand that what you have to start doing now, looking for.
Okay.
What's the incentive, right? Also, how do you also incentivize them? Because you don't understand how to incentivize them, what you'll find yourself doing is you'll find yourself just working with them on this basis of I give them money, that should be good, they should be happy. But remember I told you, people want status over money, right? So what is their deepest motivation for being there? And how do you pour into that to ratchet it up to maximize their labor while they're there? But it's not a good versus bad, right versus wrong. None of that shit. It's human nature. You're an animal that has, dog has clearly, like most people say, this is the basic instinct of a dog. The basic instincts of a cat. Do you say that about a human being? What are the basic instincts of a human being? And if you don't know that, then you're reading narratives, not their instinct. Go.
Sorry. Sometimes be glad you don't see online chat, okay?
Okay, you said what?
Be glad you don't see online chat all the time.
Oh, why?
Dr. Solomon, the loins, they're excited about the loins.
Yeah, of course Solomon is. Go ahead.
A general lesson is that beyond
By the way, happy
selling-
birthday, Dr. Solomon.
Oh, happy birthday, Dr. Solomon.
I've been seeing him be like taking all those people and hugging on those pretty women and cracking their bones. I see what he's doing. Anyway, go ahead.
A general lesson is that beyond selling an idea, companies should engage in more profit sharing with their employees, especially in those cases where their employees make key scaling and purchase decisions. Outside of the startup world, this is rare, but there are many cases where linking compensation to some metric of future performance, for example, buyers at a retail chain or acquisitions editors at publishing houses, having their compensation linked to sales of the products or books they choose, more accurately aligns incentives within organizations and will lead to fewer scaling errors.
So what you're saying is that you incentivize people by giving them some type of profit sharing around the longevity and stability of the company. So like you can also do it through bonuses. But if you do bonuses, you tie the bonuses directly to, and you name what they did. You just don't say, here's a bonus, because then it gets washed. You say, I'm giving you a particular bonus because here's some things you did that's actually impacted how we showed up in these areas. And you attach people to their, not just doing their, like burying their head and doing a job, but then they start to see a value return on their accomplishments. So that's why you wanted to learn how to profit share or have certain degrees of profit sharing. So it might not be stocks and bonds, but like I said, giving out bonus, like, think about this. Here comes Christmas, and somebody gives you $1,000. Now for you, you might be like, oh, it depends on what kind of family you got, with your greedy ass family. But for a lot of people, that's huge. Right? That means they're going to be able to enjoy the holiday at equal level and not to spend the hard-earned money. So you can incentivize people by, hey, when we did this contract here, you helped us go over this hump. So, and this is what role you played, and this is what, now you're attaching, you're giving people profit sharing within the company, because now they start to see that they're not just working hard, but they're also benefiting beyond like the standard expectations, and they're getting more invested in the success of the company. One of the things you want to do is get people to brand them by the name of your company. I'm a Pinpoint E. When they start attaching Pinpoint to their identity, and then you start shaping the narrative around Pinpoint, that also could be an incentive. All right.
Is that kind of like a commission? So like if every time they help onboard a new client, like is that the same as like you get a 20% commission for everybody you onboard?
Well, no, if they got a salary that's strong, and then you give them access.
The base salary, and then if you make
But see, problem with commissions is kind of weird. You want to get, because commissions can also turn into a different competitive game and lead them flip over to the other side. So now they're just getting people to commit and whatever they can to get that percentage, or they even can bring the bad people in that they know ain't gonna stay with Pinpoint that much longer, but I got my commission check, right? You want to get them into the idea of, hey, if depending on how many people you got to join and how long they stayed, I have this extra bonus check for you at the end of the year. It's a deeper incentive. So now they think about the right person to fit the right formula. Otherwise, I'm bringing in all my fucking cousins. They're going to all sign up. They're going to get that BO next month and they all quit, but I got my money. Go ahead.
I was also thinking, it comes in conversation. So over time, it comes in conversation. You'll be able to, if you in observation mode with this, you'll be able over time to see what some of their incentives are, just in casual conversations. What I used to do, I don't do much this now, but I used to have weekly one-on-ones with my employees. Just chop it up. How you doing? How you feeling? What's going on? What's your obstacles? How can I help you? What can I make easy for you? And just top it up. Then over time, you'll hear what's important to them. Well, you know, it's the third time we had a one-on-one where you said money's not important to me. Okay, check. All right, now I'm searching for what is important so that I can add that to my repertoire of incentives when it's time to get down with you or to keep you or to help make you feel good about being here. And conversations over time, and it may take 6 months or a year, be like, all right, I got it. It ain't even money. It's not this, it's this. They want a managerial, they just want to be called manager. Got it. So
Yeah.
I'll hold that over.
That's how nonprofits do all the time. You're a director of community services. You're like, oh, I'm a director now, right? But your paycheck says you're still mopping floors. But in the end, you don't even see that you got a mopping floor paycheck because you're a director, right? And the more I become popular as a company, and as I grow my brand, and then you're tied to a director of that, I'm growing your incentives as well. It's a cold game. Like once you understand like how to drive human beings' incentives, you'll realize that marketing is not just for the outside world; it's also for the internal team. Key, let's go.
Second, if you're in a leadership position, and you should also incentivize your staff to be bias disruptors.
Mm-hmm.
As we have seen, organizations don't always incentivize employees to speak the truth.
That
And-
is so fucking critical. Keep going.
And in many cases, the person who comes up with an idea is also the sole tester of the idea.
Horrible. Keep going.
This speaks more broadly to the need for every business and organization to have a devil's advocate deputy, team, and or function built into its structure. In other words, a force that is always pushing for more data, more proof. A truly good, scalable idea will hold up even under the closest scrutiny.
So find ways to create friction for decision making. Make it really simple. When you make decisions in your company, stop making it where it goes from your mind to moving people around. Start having a process where you go from your mind to having to go through your team, be scrutinized, and then given back to you, then tested. Like have a process, an engine for to go through. You're not building an engine because you think you're stupid or they stupid or any of that stuff. It's because you're trying to prevent biases from destroying your company. So you want to build anti-bias systems that prevent you from being damaged by biases. All right? So trust me, anti-bias systems, if you don't build that, I promise you, it's going to you won't even know you got hijacked by it. All you're going to do is all you're going to feel is the numbers of your bank account not increase or go down. So building systems in place to protect you from your thinking is critical. Go ahead, Lily. Lily behind you.
Just for clarity. So is an example of anti-bias systems when you talked about replication testing last week?
Well, that was this week, yes. Replication testing. Also, creating comfort for people to disagree with you on your team. See, you the paycheck, you control the paycheck, so nobody wants to disagree with you. So you have to create comfort for everybody around you to be able to say, I totally disagree with that. In the book, he talked about when he first went to Uber, him and the CEO was going back and forth arguing, like, and he walked out like he's going to fire me. But that's what made him a good CEO, is he let his employees battle with him to actually find the best way to think about what's the best idea. But if you get to a point where you like, don't argue with me, I fire you, or I don't like the way you always challenge me. I feel like you're not a team player. I'm thinking about to let you go. Because, every time I come with an idea, somehow you always got some shit to say. Right? like that person is the most valuable person and you don't see it. It's like, once you understand the importance of teams, you can see the value of Draymond. Okay, so if you watch sport commentators, they talk about Draymond Green based on how many three-point shots he took, how many rebounds he got, how many steals he has, right? This is why you can't see his value. When you understand teams and what makes a system work, everybody can't be a scorer. You need somebody who's going to be a friction point, or this or that, or this or that, which creates the balance of a perfect system. So I think it was Matt Barnes said, without Draymond Green, they would not won any of those championships, right? But if you look at him by looking at his number measurement, you're missing his value. Well, when you build your own team, it's the same thing. Everybody can't be shooters. And everybody can't play defense. Everybody can't be logical, and everybody can't be immoral. It's a balance of you're creating a stew of your own to run your company. Stop looking at it as if you follow the 5 steps of building a team, you'll be successful. It's called build a stew to run your company. Like you may hire 20 employees, and 2 of them are stealers. They're going to be stealing candy bars every day. But you already calculated the loss and the benefit from that person. Let them have the candy bar. Shut the fuck up. Just when you catch them, just write them up or something. Huh? Stealing. Somebody's stealing from your company, right? Because stew is when you mix different things together to create a single flavor for the person who's experiencing it. You don't stop popping your collar, young. No. So in the end, like when you're running a business, just think about a business in the sense of you're creating your own formula. You understand me? That works for you, yeah. So yeah, it's stop looking at this business stuff as there's not recipes to this game. It's testing and building your own and coming up with your own solutions. It's like on a basketball team, everybody don't follow the exact same methods to win championships. And if you go back and follow the method of, like, say, the coach of the Celtics when they had their highlight, you're about to get smoked in 2022. Those methods don't work anymore, right? That quality employee, even that team structure don't even work no more. So you can't even say, well, the Chicago Bulls did it this way, so the Warriors should do it that way. It won't work because all the teams adjust to that. And as they all adjust, they just made that strategy and that formula irrelevant. And so there's a need to always figure out what you're that coach trying to create your team to go to the championship. And because of competition, all old methodologies require innovation. So everything you learn in this class require personalized innovation to make it work for you. You get that? So stop talking about it like it's like, if I do this, do that, yeah, you do this, do that, you still fail. So what the fuck you want me to tell you? You got to own the concepts to make it work for you. That's free shit, free thinking. We on this one? We did this one? Yeah, we did that one. Okay, next one. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get into synthesis. I'm gonna go a little deeper in synthesis. I purposely pulled this from the second book around mental models. I went to the second book and pulled this out. So many of you guys haven't had a chance to read this. We're gonna try to get through this in synthesis before we walk out of here. This should make you feel kind of really weird, but in the same token too, the weird is the first state. Okay. Change is not about getting you to the promised land. That's why Moses couldn't do it, and sure enough, I ain't gonna do it. I've been able to say that for years. But Change is about creating steps for you to step on to get to the next level. I can't create multiple steps when I first introduce you to something, but I can get you to the next level so you can be prepared to step to the next level. And through the process of climbing, you get to that next level. But to assume that you can sit in anybody's class, including Moses, and let him give you some game off the 10 Commandments, and all of a sudden you go from where you were to the top of that mountain, it doesn't work that way. That's not innovation, learning, and growth works. Growth is a step by step, and sometimes the early steps don't even look like you're going in the right direction. Like you think about like how I started 510 Media, right? I was a pro black dude walking around with dashikis, talking about I hate white people. Okay, I'm so far from that right now, it's ridiculous. And if you would have knew me then, you would never thought this person could exist. Because there was a steps. They might not be recognizable once you climb to the top, but in the early stages, you got to learn the principle of if you're trying to lead people, you got to lead them through steps. And in the early stages of steps, they may not see the way they would look once they reach the top of the stairs. So let's jump into this incentive game a little bit. Let's go.
Incentives shape behavior in all animals.
Wait, how many animals?
All animals.
Some animals?
All animals.
Few animals?
All of
Human being animals.
all animals.
Ain't that some shit? All animals, all lives matter. What? All animals. Keep going.
We move in the direction of rewards and will easily take steps to avoid punishment.
Okay, so real quick, you move in the direction of rewards and you will avoid punishment. Some of y'all a little freaky. But point is this, y'all will avoid punishments, okay? Okay, I've been waiting to say some of this stuff all this time, and Pastor Chris can get to me. Keep going.
Humans, when we are thoughtful about incentives, will change our behavior to attain a perceived benefit.
Keep going.
We will go through the same behavior loops to detour around perceived disadvantages.
Now, just real quick, this is incentives that's directing your habits. You know, people are like, I want to change my habits. Have you thought about changing your incentives? Keep going.
However, the ability to identify and respond to incentives is an intrinsic part of our biological makeup.
Okay, meaning that you don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to believe in what the fuck I'm saying. You're a victim of it. You can believe what the hell. You can all be in here believing about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got 13 different religions in here, and you're all impacted by incentives. You can be all different genders, ages, heights, sizes, races. It doesn't matter. You're all victims of incentives. Keep going.
However, the ability to identify and respond to incentives is an intrinsic part of our biological makeup.
Keep going.
Therefore, their influences on our behavior are not always rational.
Okay, here we go. Incentives override rationality. Say this again. When I used to drive down San Pablo, I used to say, how is it this young girl's out here? She's beautiful. She's beautiful. She don't need to be out here. And if you don't understand her incentives, you don't understand her story. You over there using rationale. So when you're working with your employees, why are they doing this? What's their incentive? You see what this deeper? Do you see how deep this game's about to get? Once you understand human beings' incentives, you see their rationale. Because their brain will rationalize the incentives as opposed to the rationale drives the incentives. Now, this ain't pimpology class, this is leadership class, but it sure gonna sound like it. Keep going.
We often evaluate the value of an incentive through an incredibly biased lens.
There you go. We often evaluate the value of incentives through an incredibly biased lens. Go ahead.
Made up of our self-esteem, our personal narrative.
Our what? Our personal what?
Narrative.
Tell Shakina what you just said. Personal what?
Narrative.
Everybody look at Shakina and tell her personal narrative. Thank you, honey. Okay, so often we can't see incentives. When black people are trying to help the black community, sit down because I'll see your incentive. But so when folks are trying to help other races, other cultures, and they don't see your incentives, do you understand how they're misreading everything? Do you understand when you middle class go to work every day and you try to help the black community and you don't see the incentives, how you can't See them? Men, when you try to help women, you see how you can't help them because you're a man, because you don't see her incentives? And women, when you try to help men, you see how your limitations because you don't understand his incentives? This is a deeper conversation now. We're going to go past this little superficial, men are this and women are this, and women from Venus and men are from Mars, or whatever the fuck y'all say, whatever that shit goes. Let's roll. Personal narratives in our, what?
Physiological state.
In our physiological state? This shit about to get ugly. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. Okay. Go ahead.
Never ever think about something else when you should be thinking about the power of incentives.
You know, your voice is so beautiful, but it's made for hummingbirds and swans and doves. Can you say that shit again so the eagles and the vultures can hear you?
Never ever think about something else when you should be thinking about the power of incentives.
Never ever think about something else when you should be thinking about the power of incentives. Go back and unlock everything you like and dislike and try to read it through incentives and watch how it changes its meaning. Go.
Behavior modification. Stuck. Behavior modification behaviors can be a response to both internal and external factors.
Okay.
Multiple studies have shown in both rats and humans.
Wait, we studied rats and humans similar? Is that crazy? Because we're both animals, maybe? Keep going.
That consistent but infrequent rewards can create stronger behavioral changes than those that are given all the time.
Hold on a second. Now I'm gonna have to say like a pimp, because that's cold-blooded pimp shit. Incentives change, the power incentives change when you change the consistency of the incentive. Okay. It's like what I say, huh? If I can just keep you dangling, you understand me? I got you. But if I give it to you all the time, I lose you. I ain't gonna say because you don't get me in trouble, but you can't love those. You understand me? You know where that phrase came from? This is what they were talking about. So let me take it on a deeper level. So I gave you out a street level, because the street's been telling you this for a long time. They were true. Right? You gotta keep on wanting. If you give them too much, you don't got them, they got you, baby. These have been rules, am I lying? For years. We old enough to hear, we've been hearing these rules since we were little kids. What you talking about, Uncle? Don't worry about it, you'll be old enough one day. Let me explain to you how deep this goes. You go to Las Vegas. You don't always win, do you? That's why you're addicted. When you go on social media and you post a picture, they don't always love you. That's why you're addicted. That's the real truth. That's how social media got you. If you read there's a book written about how to manipulate human beings. And one of the tricks was to always give them a reward for the same actions. Now you're running your company and you give an exact bonus every year and you wonder why it doesn't work anymore. Sorry. This is why you can't look at the world through morals and good and bad, because at the end of the day, that ain't what moves human beings. If a human being get a little bit of love and you pull back a little bit and you give a little bit of love, you pull back a little bit, that human being will love you more. Let you stay there every day. And get the exact same love every day. You ask, you say you want it, so as you get it, you're like, this shit is boring, he's weak. Somebody replace him. Where's the Timberland boys? Keep going. I'm trying to give you all, this is real psych. I'm not even, incentives is a cold game. I'm giving you all the deep shit. This is the shit that when I'm building a product to move and nudge human behavior, I got to take this equation into consideration. Otherwise, I'm stuck in somebody's narrative. Roll. A rat.
A rat learns that a certain lever will sometimes produce food.
Sometimes that lever, you pull that lever, a rat understands, you understand me? That when you pull that lever, it's going to produce some food.
It's always the same lever,
Always the same lever. I pull that lever, baby, it's going to give me something. Go ahead.
but it doesn't always have food.
Ain't that something? Daddy don't always have no food for you. Go ahead.
The rat will continue to press that lever for far longer after food is no longer given than a lever that always gave food, then one day just stopped.
Now y'all see why y'all with these fucked up dudes? Because that rat, you pull that lever one day and you got that food. And then he don't give you food for a long time. Then one day he give you a little bit more food when it gets real rough. Then he don't give you food no more. He give you a little bit more food. And before you know it, you pull the lever and ain't no food coming and you still pull the lever every day. Pimping since pimping. Now, black women, I don't need y'all to be pimped and y'all trying to save our community. I need y'all to wake the fuck up. Men the same way. That woman who, you know, hey daddy, and rub your hair and ears, and as soon as you drop that little money off, and then the rest of the month is kind of hard to get to her. And then when she needs something else, just, hey daddy. And you addicted and you don't know why you can't stop giving her that money. The power of incentives. Keep going.
The long-term influence of short-term incentives.
Long-term influence of short-term incentives. Let's go.
Chris Foster said, "But you went from pastoring and now has relapsed back to pimping."
Hey, I'm coming back. I'm just give me a second, Pastor. Give me a second, Pastor Chris. Give me a second. Go ahead.
One of the main challenges with incentives is that they are a factor everywhere. Our needs, our wants, short-term interests, and long-term goals. On a basic survey of the people around us, humans do not generally appear to be able to prioritize incentives for deferred rewards over those that bring us immediate pleasure.
Meaning that we are more tempted to play the short game over the long game. And in business, as entrepreneurs, you got to play more long games than short games. So this is a very tempting thing. Go ahead.
This is a problem in democracies, as Aristotle pointed out over 2,000 years ago. For all their political attractiveness, they are essentially governed by millions of people acting in their own self-interest.
There you go. Wait a minute. Lock that in. In democracy, most of the people are working in their own self-interest. So when I come to tell you that I'm working in your interest, or I believe in this idea, what is my personal interest, self-interest? Keep going.
And those interests tend to be driven by incentives that offer immediate reward.
Immediate rewards, not long-term rewards. And that's why he said if you listen to them, there should have immediate reward somewhere. It's going to pop up. It's going to pop up. And it may not be money and jewelry and food, right? It may be something that has to do with status, or pretty much status, just different interpreting. There's different forms of status. It's not just one form of status. There's virtual status. There's personal. It's all kind of different kind of status. But once you hear that, you start to see why people are coming to you, or why people are engaging, why people are buying you. When they buy your products, they're not buying your products because that shirt is such a nice shirt and I really like Adidas. It's Adidas has developed a certain amount of status in a certain community, and if I wear that Adidas shirt, I say I am of this status in that community. They don't give a fuck about Adidas. When Mr. and Mrs. Adidas die, they're not going to be sad. It's about does Adidas give me status? Once you understand that, when you sell in neighborhood, you say, what is the value of McDonald's? You know what's an incentive? A lot of times, McDonald's biggest incentive is, yes, you belong to a certain culture, and there's a attachment to that, but it's also one of the biggest incentives of McDonald's is safety. You know what you're going to get no matter where you go. And most people at McDonald's only eat the same thing all the time. Go ahead, let's keep going. Oh, okay. Keep going.
Voters want to hear about policies that will have an immediate positive impact on their lives. Most have less interest in policies that won't have any obvious benefits for years or even generations.
So you understand why now politicians sound so superficial? I can get them to be smart enough fuck as I want and try to have a long-term discussion about what's the long-term impact of this poor decision. And people are like, why? Shut the fuck up, wrap it up. Right? But if I say, hey, look here, y'all gonna get paid next week. Oh man, that's the man. You say, we're gonna make sure that we gonna improve healthcare. Oh, Shabisha is gonna be the next president of the United States. That's like Uncle Ruckus. But, oh, it's gonna be the next president of the United States, right? But whatever, anybody know about Uncle Ruckus? That is some hard shit. But anyway, what is this? People don't even have the attention span. So when you even selling products to people, hey, if you buy my oranges, this will make sure that by the time you're 50, your chest and your heart. Okay, does this shit taste good? Will it clear my throat? Would the guy next to me think I'm cool because I'm drinking orange juice? Oh, I like orange juice. But some of y'all smart motherfuckers be like, no, it's the vitamin C and then if you have scurvy or something like that, it would prevent that, and it's just long-term disease prevention and the doctor's review. I read this thing on New York Times. This is why you can't sell shit. You talking the wrong language. You see the game I'm giving you? When you're talking to the market you seek to serve, how do you seek what they want when they come in that room? If they come to pinpoint to work out, maybe I want a cute boyfriend and all this other shit you just said, blah, 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 vitamins and shit, whatever. Can I get a new boyfriend? That's what's coming off as. But you over here talking about, the particular bone and muscle in your knee can call if you stretch it a certain kind of way. Okay, but can I get a new boyfriend? If I can't get a new boyfriend, all this shit you saying ain't shit. That's the world you live in. Some of y'all are too fucking intelligent for the customer you seek to serve because you don't understand incentives. If you don't see incentives, you don't see shit when it comes to human beings. Why do you think people go to Pastor Chris Church? Is the more flamboyant Pastor Chris looks as far as bigger than life? I bet you a large percentage of his members are there because their status is attached to his growth. If you get caught into all that stuff, they tell like, I'm here because in the end, my soul just doesn't feel, I feel like you're the only translator of Jesus I ever heard. There's too many ministers for that argument to make sense. They could have just went outside down the street, around the corner, there's a church right there. It was, I went to your church because this is my incentive. Now, if he gets so intelligent, like they shouldn't be here for that incentive, they should be here for that, and he turns that incentive off, he had 3 members. They'd be the deepest 3 members, most godliest 3 members in the world, but he had 3 members. That's the reality of life we're dealing with. You might say, well, no, that seems something good and bad, morally wrong. Okay, but if he has a larger income because he has more members, he can do morally greater stuff. So at the end of the day, if he's trying to be impactful, does he go self-righteous and destroy his numbers and become super righteous? And at the end of the day, or does he realize that human beings are going to be there for their own interests, and he has to meet them halfway somewhere and lead them to a better place? Or does he say, I'm just going to sit this better place, and if you can't reach me on a mountaintop, See how life is complex? You have to read your customers because you can, remember what I said, give them what they want while giving them what they need? This is what it is. So Shakina still has to be a professional GM. That the person who goes to her gym can go back to their friend and say, I'm at the best gym because my trainer does this, which is status, right? 2, she has to prevent lawsuits. 3, she has to protect the long-term relationship, so she needs that customer to stay for a period of 1 to 2 years. She don't need customers coming in for a week or 2 and be gone. So she's incentivized to learn her shit for real. Plus she's in competition. And at some point, she has to be able to lob things up to say, I'm better than all these Trumps. I can whoop them all. Bring them on. I got all this knowledge, right? But if she really broke her down her job every day to what she does and what really people are there most of the time for, if she don't double down on those core spaces and make sure there's her investment, which is her value offer to the market value offer, if she's not doubling down, making sure those things are well invested into, and she starved those areas, she could be the most intelligent GM with no members. Ain't that cool? That's how life, see, some of y'all playing the wrong game. The game y'all playing is y'all playing status games to be smarter than everybody. And because you practicing being smarter than everybody, you no longer can see your customers. You guys know how cold this is? So you process the world to get closer to the people you seek to serve. You don't process the world to change your status to the people you seek to serve. This is a lot of insight. Let's go, come on.
As Neil Ferguson writes in Civilization, we love our grandchildren,
Oh, this is so cold.
but our great
Great.
grandchildren are harder to relate to.
Meaning that none of y'all even think about your great-great-great-grand, like your great-great-great-grandmother. If I told you right now, hey, tell me about your great-great-great-grandmother. You might have a couple of cool stories, but you can't relate to it. And you won't be able to relate to your great-great-great-grandchildren. We're animals, we live within our myopia and our thinking. So when you try to put things way outside that myopia, we can't. However, those of us who are trying to be leaders have to see outside the myopia to be better roles within the myopia. You see where I'm going with this? So if you don't think bigger, you can't understand. If you can't see macro, you can't see micro. They tie together. Where you go wrong because there's so many false narratives running around you all the time that are micro-driven that makes you get lost and confused on what to believe. And this is why often you stay in these categories of poverty, middle class, lower class, da-da-da-da-da-da. Your ability to step outside of that, then you start seeing the patterns and the systems, and then you start moving things around and changing the way you think, which allows you to navigate into a different lifestyle. Keep going. Turn it back on, yeah.
3 politicians have no choice but to respond to the incentives to think short term. Otherwise, they won't gain voter support.
Yeah.
They therefore present platforms highlighting the benefits that will miraculously occur should they win.
So there you go. So it's a dirty game that some of y'all might say, this is a dirty game. If you don't win the votes, you can't do the work you want to do. When I get an example of Pastor Chris, I mean, some of y'all probably feel like, oh, that feels just kind of weird. You know, you serve God. How does he get the work done? See, if he has work to do, and Pastor Chris, he's known for the work he does. If you ever talk to Pastor Chris, he could tell you all of his plans or all the things he plans on doing in the community, his members. He always has work he's putting in. He just doesn't grab a microphone and just show his charismatic ways. He actually has work, plans, and efforts to get it done. You know how hard it is to get a lot of work done when you ain't got no money coming in and ain't no members? On an institution that relies upon donations? You know how hard it is to be a politician when you can't get no votes? When you place your politicians in your studio and your cast be like, this is enough of this shit. Keep going.
They therefore present platforms highlighting due to the relatively short term that people tend to hold political office, it's difficult for any particular politician to make significant positive change in that time. They're surrounded by rapid feedback loops that depend on them showing fast results. Short election cycles, frequent opinion polls, media reports every minute of the day, and instant social media chatter. The result is a system where politicians have little incentive to think beyond the current election cycle.
Now you should understand Donald Trump on a whole different level. Donald Trump is a product of a certain portion of America you don't see. And his fast responses to stuff, oh, that's stupid, that wasn't thought out. There's a portion of America that loves that shit. That he damn near won the election again, and he may win in the next round. It's a chance. So in the end, your beliefs got you, I don't like that dude. But there's a group of people who have that beliefs. What happens if you open your business in those neighborhoods? You need to see that. When people are voting a certain kind of way, you got to see what they're voting for. That tells you a lot about the incentives of that community. That tells you what kind of business you can build in that particular environment. Those are insights, beautiful ass insights. Keep going. We're going for about 3 more slides and we'll call it a day.
In a similar manner, publicly traded companies are incentivized to sacrifice long-term growth in the interest of showing profits on quarterly reports.
So this is why big businesses can't rule forever. Because they have to keep responding to short-term growth by their investors or by their shareholders. that the shareholders forced them to make mistakes that small companies are able to exploit to take their place. It is so damn difficult when you go public. It's a fast money grab, but it comes with a cost of its longevity. And so a lot of times when you tell me that white people have been oppressing you for 400 years and there ain't been no cracks in the armor, that is not nowhere near, it's nowhere near the truth. The system is not designed for that. Human thought is not designed for a smart system that can oppress a group of people for hundreds of years with no flaws and no breaks. At some point, we've been trained to maintain our own oppression. At some point, we've been trained to maintain our own oppression. Because no system is that strong. Human beings can't, our brains can't support a long-term, super brilliant system that's gonna always maintain a position of power.
That's crazy.
Go ahead.
Like the rats.
Go ahead. Pass the microphone. By the way, that's one reason we want to have two classes. I want class to be able to slow these lessons down, because there's a lot more. Like, I probably only hit 25% of it in a half a year. We want to be able to slow the class down so we can spend back and forth time, because I want to push the thought envelopes and let's dance with it. I want you to bring your ideas, your beliefs, your diversity into the room, so we can unpack this stuff, because this is hard stuff to process if you had a job for a long time. This is hard, because it almost feels like I'm slapping all your morals and values in the face when I'm actually not. I'm taking you to a higher level. What makes the Christ, when I said I love the Bible, Christ in his representation and his character as his divine was such higher level of thinking that most of us don't even have an idea what that is. It's too far removed from us even understand. So Christ wasn't just spiritually disciplined. When you get to a certain level, you almost move like Christ. But it requires a lot of growth to understand or try to make that translation, because you're not reading things by these typical narratives that are popular in society. You're seeing the real, true human motivations, and you realize this has no value to even play this game. You'll never win that game. And if you play this game, you cause more self-destruction to yourself, even though you destroy others. But once you get to a higher level, you realize, oh, this is, and then people are like, man, you sure are patient. Oh my God, you sure are loving. Oh my God, you're so insightful. Oh my God, you really care for other people, because you're playing a different game. And it's just how you have a game right now that you play that makes you feel good. As you rise, there's another game that makes you feel good. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, so if the goal is to give people what they want, how do we add value, provide quality in the things that we do, or are we just doing that in the background after, because
Well, no, because quality is tied to status, right? You give me a pair of shoes that fall apart, and my friends see my shoes fall apart, and they raggedy ass shoes, and the leather feels like this cheesy ass Payless leather. Humans are not stupid. They'd be like, you got them cheap ass, whatever name shoes on, because they fall apart, right? They got to be able to hold up, because competition is going to challenge you. Two, that at the end of the day, people want to be able to brag, I have on cashmere socks. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. But it's a certain quality that says I'm in a different status realm, right? Two, people got to feel a certain kind of way when they even approach. When I get a box from Apple or from, say, like I saw some Jordans. Jordan came out with these shoes. It was like a recreation of Jordan 3 in collaborations with some company. And when you open the box, the paper it's wrapped in tells a story. That sells them same as $7 tennis shoes for $200 or $300 because you change the way you feel about it and change your narrative. You're narrative controlling. That's where quality comes from. And you're in competition. You don't get to, none of us in this room get to do what we want. Once you join a group, you give up individual rights. Once you join a group, you give up individual rights. Once you play a game, you give up individual rights. So once you're playing a game, you're trying to win the game. Win the game it'll be as limited by, this is what I feel. Your feelings? What game are you, once you understand what game you're playing, imagine being on an NBA basketball court. I'm like, I don't feel like shit today. Fuck these motherfuckers, man. You pass the ball if you want. Not only are you gonna lose, you lost your contract to be in the NBA to play that game at all. At some point, no matter how you feel, damn, my knees feel. I think it was one of the players. I think it was what's the dude on the tall dude on the Lakers. Don't ask Don't ask Chris, because Chris would be like, you mean Anthony, Anthony, oh my God. Like he'll probably pass out on you or just in love and be just laying on the ground having just love attacks and his wife would come pour water like, wake up. But Anthony Davis said, I should be cool if I make at least 60 games this season. And I think it was Matt Barnes, somebody's like, what? Oh no, it was Gilbert Arenas. He was like, what? What is he talking about? If you play 82 games, you're supposed to feel hurt. You can't play 82 games and feel good. It's not possible. Like, there's no crying in baseball, right? When you run a business, it's not about your feelings no more. It's about the game you chose to play. And the pleasure comes from you playing that game effectively, and that replaces a lot of that story of what makes me feel good and what doesn't make me feel good. But when you get into like your individualism, you're betraying the game you signed up to play. Ain't that some cool shit? Fuck your individualism. Fuck your stories. Now, for the public, if the public's in this room, I can't preach fuck your stories because some of those stories are holding them together. They're so fragile. That little thin story is the only thing that's keeping them from killing everybody in this room. Right? But once you decide you want to be a leader, just like if you're a parent, anybody a mama, daddy in this room? Don't your kids tell you every day, fuck your story? You'll be like, I don't feel like cooking right now. Mama, fuck your story, I'm hungry. Right? That's what life's about. We're here to serve. I'm sorry, people. Stop running around here like we TV prima donna Disneyland greatest. You're here to serve. It's just what game do you want to serve? And you got to know that's the game. You're always playing a game. Just choose your game. Don't let the game choose you. Let's keep it going. You understand me? I just can't wait to teach this shit because it's going to let me just talk my shit. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm still back on the collar.
You know what I mean? Look here. Choose the game before the game choose you. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
The short tenure of CEOs and their large bonuses create perverse incentives of improvements that compound over time. For instance, many companies feel the need to jump on every new trend within their market to capitalize on the attention of their customers. This results in a hamster wheel.
Exactly. You can't chase. Don't chase customer happiness. That's why you got to understand the incentive game. I mean, my customer's happy. Oh, they're happy. Oh, they're happy. Now you're on the hamster wheel and about to get screwed. You got to go beyond the hamster wheel. You're going to have hamster wheel moments. You just can't stay there. You can't keep making all your decisions based on, oh, they were so happy. That's why I did it, Nana, because it was happy. Everybody in the room was happy. What do you mean it's a bad idea? Go ahead.
That reminded me of Jordan. He started posting on a separate Instagram page, different teams. Like, look at the team we just did. Thanks for rocking with Court Smith. And it was just his little project that he did with a separate Court Smith Instagram site. So soon, coaches will be coming in mad that Jordan didn't post their uniforms. And we were thinking, oh shit, this is a status thing for them now. Or when they pick up the uniforms, they say, hey, can you make sure that you do the little posting for us? Because I'm like, oh, he over there building a status thing with the uniform so that it makes everybody feeling, and you don't even know it sometimes.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Once you guys understand this game theory, oh, it's cold. It's some cold shit. Keep going. We get it. Keep going.
This results in a hamster wheel of new tweaks rather than companies focusing on building timeless products and services.
So this is what happens when you get too much. When you're small, okay, big companies can weather that storm. Small startups can kill you. Everybody's happy to your destruction. You're not building smart, long-lasting idea products or building habitual products or products that really plug into people's needs and incentives. You build products that's plugging into like just keeping them happy. You're a pop-based company. So your employees, your customer turnover, your turnover rate is so high, you can't afford that cost. You're out. That goes back to what you said earlier. If you're just chasing the happiness, you can't last. At some point, you got to invest in a relationship, which takes time. Pastor Chris can understand these. I'm using Pastor Chris because churches are on the other extreme opposite side of this, but I'm going to show you how churches don't get a chance to escape this. Pastor Chris can play the incentive games, but he still has to have a rich enough quality to keep people there. Otherwise, he's only getting 1-day memberships, 2-week memberships, 1-month memberships. That's going to kill him. He needs loyal memberships to build. Not talking about finance-wise, talking about if he want to get work done, but every time he has new managers and new employees every other month, what can he get done? The training process alone kills him off. So he has to build enough rich enough quality to keep people there, but also understand that their incentive may not be necessarily his incentive. So you can't let your incentive always blind your strategy is aligning with their incentives. This is why serving the customer, becoming the most valued advisor, or most valuable advisor, it was a phrase we used to use last couple of years ago, is how do you become most valuable to them, not valuable to you? Go. In all things equals the enemy. Keep going.
Some large organizations have budgets that incentivize reckless spending.
Mm-hmm.
Federal agencies with use it or lose it budgets spend an average of 8.7% of their budgets during the last week of the fiscal year.
And we get paid for that. Go ahead. We get paid so much money for that shit because we got to spend the money. Keep going.
Nearly 5 times the typical weekly expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, projects funded during the last week are between 2 and 6 times as likely to be rated as low quality than ones from the rest of the year.
Look, we got paid one contract for $300,000 and they never even did anything. They gave us $300,000 because they got to spend the money because they have this incentivized system that forced them to spend it. And by time they could have even revved up to do the project, all those employees got promoted or fired. Keep going.
Furthermore, variable pay for managers in these organizations is often tied to spending their budget.
So, mind you, the way it works in government is if you don't spend as much money by the end of the year, you don't get that kind of budget the next year. So so in the end, they end up just spending money on whatever they can to get that money out the door so you can have the same budget next year for whatever possibly they want to do for the following year. But what happens is at the last part of the year, because they're just trying to get rid of the money because they gave them a bad incentive, they end up spending money on some of the most dumbest shit in the world, creating more noise for the organization, and sometimes that noise can get so heavy that it boggles that department down. Go ahead.
Some large organizations.
Okay.
Some large.
Oh, we already did that one. Go next.
Oh, yeah, it's twice. Okay, here we go. Aligning incentives. How do you get people to move in the same direction without being waylaid by immediate reward?
Come on now, let's go.
Sun Tzu suggested over 2,000 years ago that a good leader leads his men into battle like a man climbing to a height and kicking away the ladder.
Wait a minute, say it because I'm a lead. We're going to climb this ladder. We're going to climb this hill. When we get to the top, I'm kicking away the ladder. We can't even go back. Go ahead, keep going.
When you can't go back, your motivation is to go forward together.
Oh, keep going.
Manipulated by incentive, we are vulnerable to the influence of incentives, whether from money, prestige, or power.
Mm-hmm.
Most insidious is when an incentive is designed to appeal to our personal narrative about the kind of person we are.
Whoa.
No one.
Okay, wait, freeze. Now you understand why Fight to Be is a pro-black organization? It's to maximize the best performance out of black people. It's a higher incentive. If we were just for our money, I have a friend right now, he's like, I don't understand why I can't grow my company. Because his only incentive is to get paid more money. But by us saying we're a pro-black organization, these are things we want to do, this class incentivizes my team. As I help people here, they say, I want to be a part of that because that's what I believe in, that's who I am. They get you to attach the narrative. But if I was just trying to get paid and follow all these rules, I'm going to have a higher turnover rate because I'm not aligning with their narratives. You can go with this now? This is some game recognition. I know this is Goldie Class 101, but trust me, y'all about to pimp this system like never before if you just hang with me. Keep going.
No one wants to be thought of as bad. So we often perform intellectual contortions to justify our pursuit of an incentive as good.
Did I just tell y'all, your brain don't want to see yourself as bad or playing a game or on the own side of morality. So when I threw out morality earlier and everybody's squealing, like, what about, right? Because your brain don't like that shit. It ain't you. You're not flawed. There's nobody in this world, nobody can hear my voice is flawed. Don't personalize any of this stuff and say smart, dumb, good or bad. But when your brain can't handle something that it thinks is going to be bad or devalued or your incentives reduce, your brain is going to change the narrative in your head to justify that position. Otherwise, it's a form of cognitive dissonance, and your brain is going to struggle with that like never before. Boy, if you don't start squeezing that thing when you drink the water quietly, boy, you act like something wrong with you. Then go ahead.
An incentive is a bullet, a key, an often tiny object with astonishing power to change a situation.
Wait, just let that sit in your brain. An incentive is like a bullet, small, but could change everything. Like that, you don't. Like when y'all really get this, listen. I think we're almost done. When y'all get this shit, how powerful incentives are, you realize I'm teaching you guys one of the deepest tricks of the game. Period. You gotta not just worry about avoiding being victimized by it. You gotta learn to control it and use it as your tool. The same axe that was used to kill people is the same axe that can chop down that tree and clear the forest. The same axe that gets the wood to build your house. So if you look at incentives as an axe, it depends on who the person using it, how it shows up and how it serves. Don't put it in good versus bad, bad versus good. That's that element, that's your Christian, not your Christian, because the Christian, that's your religious thinking, that's religious thinking. You just want to categorize it by these binary codes of good, bad, right, wrong, evil, No, pull the binary thinking off and say, here's a tool that human beings are going to respond to, whether you like it or not. And you can, if you don't understand it, you're probably going to be a victim of it, and you're going to probably misuse it. But if you have some kind of moral code of who you are, that you believe in, and some game you play in, then you know how to take this tool, like fire, that can be dangerous and destructive, and use it in a way to cook your food as opposed to burn down houses. You see where I'm going with this? This is some cold game. Many of us have been abused by incentives, and so, and I can get deep, really deep about that shit about why racism is such a hot topic for human beings. It's a hot topic for all human beings, because human beings' envy for higher status is built into our system. It's a part of our instinct. So a lot of times when I'm talking about these incentives, there's somebody who's using it against you to protect their status, and so you're really sensitive about this. Some of you guys have trauma attached to this. But you gotta understand this game is that if you don't use it, it will be used. Go ahead.
The initial financial component is easy to understand. Money is desirable, and therefore it is a common incentive that modifies behavior everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But money
alone, come on.
But money alone isn't often enough.
No, money is never enough. We only want money to change our status. Keep going.
Undoubtedly, if you ask people whether they would harm thousands of children for money, most would say no.
Yeah, would y'all kill the kids for money? Well, some of y'all find after the iPhone, maybe a couple. But the point is, would you kill kids for money? No. Keep going.
Therefore, in order to understand the real power of incentives, you have to look at the psychological condition they create.
Keep going. Come on.
Humans don't like cognitive dissonance.
This is, let me give you some game. Most of these ideas you learn in this class, one by themselves is almost harmless. You mix two concepts together, it's like creating a bomb. You make cognitive distortion with incentives, and I can make you kill your kids. Go.
Humans don't like cognitive dissonance, the state of tension that occurs whenever a person holds two cognitions, ideas, attitudes, beliefs, opinions, that are psychologically inconsistent.
So remember what I said at the beginning of this class, which I know most of y'all are going to struggle with. If you're going to be able to get to the second half of this class, you got to be able to hold two opposite ideas in your brain at the same time is true. Your brain calls that kind of the dissonance, and your brain fucking hates it. Go.
We engage in self-justifying rhetoric to reduce this dissonance.
So we create fake-ass self-justifying rhetoric amongst ourselves, and we join groups that reinforce that rhetoric. Keep going.
In the case of incentives for endorsements, the often subconscious thought process might go like this. I am a good person. I supported this drug. A good person would not support a drug that is harmful. So the drug can't be harmful because I am a good person.
You see how it just happened? How they just flipped that real quick? Your brain does that so fast and so to outside your awareness that you will go from you would take something that's really horrible in society and flip it because your brain has to find comfort and justify the inconsistency. This is how a lot of criminal behavior is made. This is why a lot of good people are in prison, because of this. This is some cold game. But if you frame them real fast, you'll never know this exists. But if you keep asking why, you'll learn about this. Go.
We don't see these connections laid out. And so what is produced is the opinion the drug is good without having a window into the mental gymnastics that got us there.
Oh, marijuana. So, weed. I mean, hip hop. It's like, come on now. I'm a good person. He's a good person. He listens to hip hop. You trying to say Core's a bad person? How much has made it to our communities right now that's trash? That we can't even evaluate in a conversation in public because of cognitive dissonance. Just let your mind wrap around that shit right there. How much in your community that right now you are stuck in? Are you justified? Are you accepted? Are you let go? Oh, women, look, you want to be sexy, right? And if you want to dress halfway naked and Shabisha's good, then you dress you being 16, dress halfway naked at school. What could be bad about that? Let her express herself. Lizzo, she's a beautiful person. She plays good music. Being morbid obese is not, come on, Nana. You being too critical in your thought. Cognitive dissonance is hard for human beings across the board. Not me, not you, not black, not white, not Asian, not Portuguese, not French. Everybody. All people. We started with the word all people, right? We didn't say black people from East Oakland. My folks from Sobrante Park. Motherfucking San Francisco and shit. Richmond and things. We be tripping because we got kind of distant. Everybody else is kind of cool. Maybe the folks in Sacramento in the hood, they kind of got that shit too, though. No, all people. Rich, white, Water Creek, walking down the street without a care in the world. They don't even know what the swivel feels like on their neck. The last time they swiveled was at a fucking carnival. Yes, they deal with cognitive dissonance. This is why when white folks do stuff that's racist and you tell them it's racist, their brain says, I can't process that. I can't. I'm a good person. It can't be racist. I'm a good person. That can't be wrong with this gangster rap. I'm a good person. I listen to it. Doesn't affect me. We talking about being leaders, right? If I say right now, hey, you're a leader in the black community, what are some of the hot topics? If you think like everybody else, you can't even see the hot topics. You're taking, we need to increase Black Lives Matter. Defund the police. No! You got psychological things that's stopping you from seeing your current state and how to even work on it. Then you try and measure things through morality and good and bad and fairness, and you got your people even more damaged than they were before. Do you understand the impact that Black Lives Matter have on hood folks? You understand what criminals do with that shit? Criminals be like, wait a minute, you ain't gonna pull me over no more because it's not legal. Governor Newsom signed a bill that says I'm a prostitute, don't harass the prostitutes. You mean you can't, I think they say, we're gonna increase the traffic part of OPD. Then the chief says, yeah, but we can't go too far because it mostly impacts poor people. and people of color. You know what criminals say? Really? Well, you know, I've been oppressed for a long time, baby. We don't see the levels of separation. And then black folks who they come out of college, yes, I do see how the disparities are impacting black people of color. And as a PhD in black studies, I just feel like at the end of the day, the way we build a better system is that we show equality amongst all. So, you know, if you pull people over, I think first of all, if he has a gun and he made his gun and it's not registered, he doesn't need to go to jail. He just needs to get a misdemeanor, see a judge or something. And then he goes home, that's the new law in Oakland. If you got those handmade guns, you don't go to jail. What? It's a misdemeanor. Oh yeah, the chief of police said this. It's a misdemeanor. Because it's unfairly impacting people of color. Mm-hmm. Black Lives Matter, BLM. Let's keep it going. This is the real shit you're living in, because people who are leaders are not learning how to be leaders and say, yo, unfortunately, some shit ain't gonna feel good. Sorry, people. And some shit gonna feel like obligation. Sorry, people. See, structure allows many people to have an opportunity to become successful. Chaos destroys a lot of good people. Today I'm driving my BMW on the freeway.
Oh, flex.
You understand me? No, I'm not doing that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do that.
Flex.
And my BMW is pretty good condition. Great condition, actually. It's 2022. A truck in front of me got a bed on the back, raggedy ass truck. Can't tell what race they are, who they are, what they are. Don't matter. But pebbles are falling off the back of the truck. I hear fuck. Get off the freeway, got my dings, paint chipped. Him not following rules cost me. We're all impacted by structure. So as structure collapse, we all pay that cost. To assume that we can just be anarchy and then all have the ability to secure our earnings is close to zero. Business dies from chaos. Oh, you don't believe me? I challenge anybody to go open a store right now on 73rd and MacArthur, 73rd and Foothill. Bancroft. Which one you want to do? East 14th. What? Nobody run out the room. Even if I give you free rent, y'all be like, you keep that motherfucker. I pay you to leave me the fuck alone. Let's keep it 100, right? So the reality is, because crime is too thick in those spaces. So as a culture, in order for our culture to grow, we got to think about how to stabilize our culture so we can have all these young, great minds from the poorest to the richest be part of the solution. Pimp it. Okay, let's finish this one here one more, then we go home. Come on, play.
Physicians, like scientists, want to believe their integrity cannot be compromised. Mm-hmm. Yet every time physicians accept a few dollars or other incentives...
Are we on this one?
We read that one.
Okay. Start that last one over again, because I think Shakina's confused. She's like, what the? Nana, help her. Okay, go ahead. Let's go.
Physicians, like scientists, want to believe their integrity cannot be compromised.
So mind you, righteous people, Christians, Muslims, good people, LGBTQ+, black people, white woman, want to believe that your position would not be compromised because, you know, you're from these good groups of people who are trying to do good things, and you happen to be part of an organization with a beautiful title of status. Go.
Yet every time physicians accept a few dollars...
You understand me?
...or other incentives for performing certain tests and procedures, for channeling some of their patients into clinical trials, or for prescribing a new expensive drug that is not better or safer than an older one. They are balancing their patients' welfare against their own concerns.
Oh, is that called nonprofits? Is that what you call a nonprofit? Did I just break down a nonprofit right there? Through the game of incentives? Now you see how nonprofits fail? Because I got to raise money. And as I raise money from donors, all of a sudden I got to protect my concerns that threatens the concerns of the communities I seek to serve. This is why all money, you understand me, ain't good money. Hey man, look, all that shit y'all been hearing from the streets was game. You just use it wrong. Keep going.
Consider the story of Andrew Wakefield, the lead author on the paper published in The Lancet that claimed it had found a positive correlation between vaccine and
Y'all
autism.
remember that, right? Vaccines and autism, there's some connection there. There's a doctor who said that shit there. Oh, come on, tell the truth then.
Later debunked, but not before causing a widespread drop in vaccinations that have resulted in needless deaths.
Uh-oh.
The article was retracted.
Uh-oh.
He did not sign the retraction. Why?
Okay, go ahead.
He had a conflict of interest that he had failed to disclose to the journal. He was conducting research on behalf of lawyers representing parents of autistic children.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Wakefield had been paid more than $800,000 to determine whether there were grounds for pursuing legal action.
This is when $1 million was really $1 million, you understand me? Keep going.
Tavers and Aronson demonstrate that unlike truly independent scientists, however, he had no incentive to look for disconfirming evidence of a correlation between vaccines and autism, and every incentive to overlook other explanations.
Motivated reasoning. I mean, he wasn't a bad person. He just had no reason to challenge his ideas because he's getting paid money to find this idea. This happens too. This is how nonprofits become bad organizations. They're not bad people. There's not a single bad soul in that room. And ain't no guy gonna judge them any different than judge you. But the incentives, if you understand incentives, and you don't design your nonprofit to protect you against bad incentives, you will become bad unintentionally. Go ahead.
This is why understanding the power of incentives is both critical and tricky. The acceptance of an initial incentive creates a psychological state whereby we become invested in maintaining whatever story brought about that incentive so we can justify our acceptance of it.
Wait a minute, wait. Look, okay, this is the last. We need no more slides. This is it. No más, no más. That's the best Spanish I got for you. That's the best Spanish. My Spanish is so bad that, whew, I ain't gonna do this. Okay. Let's read that last sentence one more time. The acceptance of an initial sentence creates a psychological state whereby we become invested in maintaining whatever story, no whatever facts, whatever story brought about that incentive so we could justify our acceptance of it. What came first? The story or the incentive? And how the brain, through cognitive dissonance, flipped a whole bunch of different switches and made it logical to you. So if you brought the Black Lives Matter women and set them up here, you're gonna come with all these facts y'all want. They're blinded by their incentives. So when I said, don't blame them, blame us, because we gave them the incentives to be the way they are. Is that some cold shit? You see why you can't listen to the media? Because the media does it twists, it goes the wrong direction with shit. Why you can't watch TV? It goes the wrong directions with shit. No one's talking about deeper incentives and motivations and articulating how this crazy and cognitive dissonance when it meets incentives is the coldest brain switch you've ever seen in your life. Then when you get into once you make a judgment, they're bad people, you don't realize you can be them just with a couple of incentives. And the cold part says, the person you ask, well, he didn't show or she didn't show remorse because she didn't feel like she was doing anything bad or he didn't feel like they was doing something bad when they did it because it wasn't that they didn't. And I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, the person who does something bad to you is not the same. Even though you call them a name, what your name you call them might be right because of what you experience, has nothing to do with their motivation. And if you don't know to separate the motivation from the experience, you can never prevent the motivation from happening again. Right? If you just start saying, I got abused, but you can't figure out how to cut that, to stop that process or that pattern, it's because you think the experience you had is the motivation. Separate the motivation from the experience. And that's what you'll be learning tonight. That being said, I'm going to give out a podcast. It's going to be a heavy-ass podcast. it's going to be about objectives. I want you guys to come up with at least 1 or 2 questions and 1 thing that you feel like you learned from the podcast. I'm going to give Tennille my email to send out with it. Send that to me via email. I'm going to kind of try to summarize those up and speak towards that when we start next class. But I don't want to do these classes anymore where I'm giving out these podcasts and I'm hearing people go, it was a good podcast. Yeah, I was going. And then about 2 weeks later, y'all come to me and ask me the exact goddamn question that the whole podcast was based upon. Like, I'm trying to teach you how to be responsible for your growth. Don't make your growth depending on Nana. That's a poor, because you understand me? Because I'm going to turn into the center player I can be and give you just a little bit to keep you around. You understand me? So with that being said, y'all have a good night, and I appreciate all y'all. Take care.